Ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, everyone. On the behalf of Sustainable Development Policy Institute, I sincerely welcome you all for joining us in this consultative discussion on financing mechanisms to enable clean energy transition in Pakistan. And this consultation has been organized under SDPI's recent initiative of enabling a green financing framework in Pakistan and specifically tailored on how Pakistan's renewable energy relevant stakeholders, particularly the generators, the developers, and more importantly, the financing institutions, including the commercial banks, the insurers, and all the relevant stakeholders. What do they feel about? So, I mean, the way it is going to be scheduled is that we'll sort of initially set a scene and then have a couple of very technical presentation on potential instruments that are very tailored to the context of Pakistan and how those instruments can actually be used to address a couple of challenges, mainly talking about how Pakistan's current renewable energy investment needs, especially when we talk about the investments that are being stuck and are not being uh, flowing, how they can be solved, and also then expediting how different financing mechanisms, perhaps it could be structured concessional financing mechanisms, structured mechanisms, how they can actually be very effectively used to enable this transition for the good of renewable energy in Pakistan. We'll also sort of touch upon how these financing instruments can also help expedite Pakistan's transition away from the fossil fuels and how that's actually going to work. So, but before going into the technical discussion, we do have a couple of presentations. Let me very quickly set some of the housekeeping rules. That is this event, along with being, we do have the people joining us online. And the event is also being streamed on SDPI's different social media platform, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and the recording of the event will be available to all. So you can go back into the presentations, look at those presentations uh, uh, as later as well, and then feel free to share it within your networks as well. But before we go to towards the technical discussion, and definitely we look forward to taking inputs from all of you. It's again the first of the many consultative discussions we'll be doing on the theme. But yeah, just before going into the technical debate, let me invite Engineer Abdul Jabbar Sahab, who's currently a member of SDPI's Board of Governors, for officially inaugurating and for his welcome remarks. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So over to you. Thank you.
So I think, first of all, on behalf of I must seek apology for a bit delay, you see, which is a little bit short of half an hour. So, but I think what I would say is that blame has to be shared by both sides. Maybe we were not chasing you, I must say, at the speed of E is equal to MC square. And probably you were also not coming back to us like that. But having said so, I think SDPI is the biggest research think tank group in Pakistan, and it has a lot of credits. I will not go into those details, but you can always search us in the cyber world, and we have a lot of credit ratings amongst regional and amongst global partners in this respect. Having said so, I was just checking. I think I was allocated 10 minutes, so let me not exceed beyond that. I will restrict to that. So, having said so, the topic of the day is not what I would say a topic of the day, but it has a preceding occurrences, and it will have more occurrences in the future. I would say in respect of consultation, which I would call a series of consultation, and sometimes in our own domain when we have larger type of programs, these are also parallel activities in some modified, I would say, subtopics, but leading towards the same objective. You see, financing mechanisms for enabling clean energy transition in Pakistan, you are going to sort of listen to the presentations, and there would be more focusing on what we have invited you for to listen to us. Having said so, I can recall, because I have been associated to political energy of economy for the last many, many years, and basically being myself a power system engineer. So I loved and liked this field, but then this field also created a lot of pains for the society of this country due to its probably, I would not call it a ill planning, but rather required a better planning in respect of establishment of the conveyance of the comfort for the people of this country, say not only domestic, industrial, services, agriculture, and elsewhere. Now, I'll just talk a few words on the, I mean, say, financing mechanisms. Now, due to this climate changes, the floods of 10, 22, and all that, Pakistan was seriously being seen as one of the vulnerable countries, and probably not because of the magnitude and level of the disaster, but because of the economy and its standing vis-a-vis the disaster values. You see, we were talking about 10 billion US dollars and all that. I fairly remember when there were a series of consultations by our leaders in overseas. So we're talking about 10 billion disaster. While I think much more bigger disasters, you see, in terms of the quantified values have occurred at many places. But then the question is that they are being addressed not through seeking donations, not through seeking grants, not through, sometimes the prime minister says that whenever I go, people think I have come to beg from them. You see, I'm not saying prime minister says. So the question is that in such a sort of a weak economy, I would call it sixth populous nation, and in the world trade numbers of import exports and in the dictionary of WTO, we stand somewhere at 50th and 60th number, you see. Not really a proportionate reflection of the real development or sustainable growth, you see, I would say like that. But let me come back on this topic quickly, is that a few years back, the Asian Development Bank and World Bank reports, which were more ready for my reference, were that Pakistan is not managing another 2 to 3% of GDP growth due to problems in energy. You see, at that time it was more said for the deficiencies, and but the problem is that today, if we are much ahead of our requirements in terms of the installed capacity, but then we see that our transmission and distribution networks are not commensurate with what should be called a good planning. So now, again, I'm say jumping back to the topic. Now, what is required? Say, climate crisis. We are also global partners. I remember I have been going to WTO since 1995 in almost all the modes you see. So we are an integrated economy in the globe. Our exports are totally dependent on the importers' conditions. Thereof, for example, one of this is GSP plus and all that. So having said so, we are also having this age in this sense of being integrated. So the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, and you see other funds, climate funds, and so many other, even some of the very big NGOs and the companies in the developed blocks are thinking that this should become a accredited and recognized form of corporate social responsibility. But here today, I think we are going to discuss uh, on the financing mechanisms. In Pakistan, you see, few years back, the central bank, means the State Bank of Pakistan, had a very big role in development economics. Its act itself said so. But then, with the jargon or for considering efficiency of the central banks conducting of the affairs, the IMF thought that independent, more independent central bank will serve the causes of being custodian of the public money, because I personally believe that everything is public, you see. They are the consumers and they are the creators and they are the reasons for economic needs, project developments, and so on. So I think in the given situation, the most of the money which is sort of being parted away with is in the safe heavens, like the banks are more interested in developing not any tools, but to consider straight T-bills and, you know, paper monies by the government, which are assured, I mean, risk-free, you see, making much more money. I was just yesterday at one company where I'm a director. I was trying to park 10 billion rupees. So in the TDRs, I just saw that NBP was coming up 2% less than the T-bills. Their auctions, of course, are fortnightly, but this is the story of just few days back, I'm telling you. So even the companies in the government, they are now, you see, are thinking that the better options are going for a more secure lending and more profit. Now, having said so, the present trend of banks in Pakistan is, please don't consider it a criticism, but this is a fact that we were suggesting I mean, the people who are concerned with all these affairs that earlier there used to be concessional loans and SBP would be very much liberal or rather with the leverage to sort of go for such concessional roads in the development economics, especially the exporters were, I must say, having lot of access to those. But I think gradually, I must say, those happy days, I will not say the happy days, also not very due happy days are over. Things are getting bit more rationalized and bit more towards the objective of profitability under which the banks have now, again, I would say, not the solo flight or the sole objective, but it is becoming increasingly strong objective of the banks. Sometimes I think that SLR and all that adjustments, some statutory liquidity requirement adjustment, if they are getting relaxation, probably they can come and to become part of the sustainable growth of the economy. But then I will not go into details, but I personally believe that if the banking instruments and banking, innovative tools and models, they are developed in the development economics towards the objectivity of economic growth, probably the banks will be more beneficiary because whenever there is a growth, there's the money, and whenever there is the money, people are looking forward towards sort of chipping in there and seeking money from the bank and all other sort of modern means to sort of deploy it for the economic development. Now, finally, a few minutes would be left for me. So I will just think that we over here in SDPI are thinking, and we are also motivated to be thinking, or rather the circumstantial situations of global demands, global needs. Because if we sort of are acting, we have a reciprocation in the international system. But if we are not acting, we hardly can claim any due reciprocation in the development economics and in growth of the country. So I think the mechanisms, finances, and all that. For example, we are talking about green initiatives. Somewhere I was in seminar 2 weeks back. So I was just wondering myself that, okay, green energy, I must say how we can just bridge the gap in present available fossil fuel related and another mix, group of power generation where we are expensive and as against solar, and green initiative, how to balance the whole scenario. That is also a problem. But then a ray of hope also comes that very recently, I think the SIFC has been able to short circuit the over procedural matters and manners which have facilitated at least, I can say that negotiation with IPPs, some of them have to come close to their contractual life by just getting some payments, and some of them have agreed to certain situations and conditions. Of course, government also has a lot of charge on account of GENCOs and other government power plants. In Punjab alone, 1230 MW, two power plants are existing. So let me say like that, this all things require a specialized group group of cost economy, and I would say political economy of power, where the experts in the financial institutions, again, under a mandatory or volunteer direction, they have to create specialized groups to really think that how they would sort of mitigate the effects of high front costings, and how they will make it workable, and how the growth paradigm is also ensured. For example, I can tell you that 10 years back, when I was a member of board of Samida, we had a problems. The people will come, the ministers would come, so everybody will come. Inclusiveness of Samida, inclusive SMEs. So at that time, 10 years back, I remember Zubair Sumro probably or little bit behind, he was in NBP. So he said, yes, we concede that we almost contribute nothing to the SMEs. Why? Because there are risks. So the word risk from the 10 years back and all that, I remember from the president of the National Bank. Then the problem is that now here in these initiatives, if we consider it, and we should, that national objectives in alignment with the global requirements are to steer themselves. But the problem is that the front cost, the money, and all that. So if the banks can possibly sort of, again, the state bank should have a command to ask the banks to chip in some money to create some groups, because on the treasury side, if you go, they are ready to advise you. They have experts that, okay, we can advise you to offer 11, advise you to offer 11.5. So I was very happy to see that during the passage of time, I mean, say the banks have also created such expertise of being advisory. So let's hope that what we are trying to talk about is that okay, we may be able, but we are trying to find a ability of just making this consultation as purchasing of thoughts which we are trying to sort of during these consultations, that banks should now have such specialized groups, and the banks will have an advantage because the multilaterals and the multilateral banks, and almost even the I would say World Bank has an interest. I would not say the focal interest, but an interest how the developing economies like us could be rescued in this respect. So that would be one of the objective. And then even in those objectives, for example, I remember Professor Sun Iqbal, when the last government of Nawaz Sharif came. So he said, well, our problem is that we produce more, but we cannot transmit, we cannot distribute. So now the people, I would say people means, I would say the entities, banks, financial institutions, when they are lending, when they are investing money, probably they should have group of all experts, I would say, in the field, who can advise even the government in sort of suggesting and proposing some of the policies where it is not bilateral from the government, it is a trilateral. Maybe from the outside, Pakistan, we can receive some of the assistances, not only in terms of expertise, but in terms of available, I mean, say, resources also. So the combination of those can unlock the requirements which we have. So I think, let me check myself. I think I'm almost over now, getting to 10 minutes. So I love whenever I get a chance. I really feel deprived when I have to leave. I not feel comfortable when I leave this, like, but I think I have a 10 minutes. So I complete my 10 minutes, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Again, especially talking from the perspective of state bank, how the monetary policies, they do sort of set the direction, talking about the role of commercial financing institutions. And I believe that has made my job a bit easier as well. But yeah, just to again quickly, let me also sort of set a scene that when we actually talk about renewable energy transition, where do the financing institutions come in, whether it be the central bank, what role do they play, what role do the commercial banks play, insurance, security. And again, sir, thank you so much. We're also very pleased to have with us the Pakistan Stock Exchange as well. Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan will be joining, and a representative from 9 commercial banks, and definitely the regulator, State Bank of Pakistan. So really looking forward to all of your inputs and our collaborative working. So yeah, let me just sort of try to set a scene before we actually go into the technical presentations that will talk about the particular financing instruments. We'll be talking about 2 to 3 tools that do come in place, especially given the landscape of Pakistan, where do they exist. And also I'll be just talking a bit about what initiative has SDPI just recently taken in de-risking the renewable energy investments, what initiative we have recently taken in addressing the whole debate that we actually talk about. So yeah, again, firstly, I believe some of the points have already been highlighted, but just to sort of set the context, we need to really understand the challenge that is at hand. I mean, we talk about energy transition, we talk about renewable energy transition. Let's sort of all agree on a single point that energy transition has a cost associated with it. I mean, definitely when you talk about it, you need to come up with the new capital, you need to sort of upgrade your technology. Uh, Supply chains, new supply chains are required. And definitely, when we talk about we need to transition away from fossil fuels, definitely, if we talk about the early retirement of fossil fuels, we talk about replacement or repurposing of the fossil fuel projects as well. This all requires a lot of investments as well. So that's something that's definitely there. Now, when you sort of take this thing and sort of combine it with Pakistan's economic crisis, we all fully understand we're already a very fiscally deficit country that is already facing a lot of economic challenges, pretty much of its own. But then, just in I believe since post 2019, we have been in the circle of a lot of challenges, especially the repercussions of COVID-19. Definitely, there has been a regional turmoil that has just shot up the energy prices, as well as Pakistan's own inflation and challenges are there. We'll talk about a lot of what Pakistan's power purchase agreements are, how they index with dollars, and how those are again contributing to this challenge. Definitely, our current commitments. Uh, Again, if we sort of start talking about the power projects or sort of the early retirement, definitely uh, in the short term, it might not make a sense. We have a very young fleet. They have a lot of, even many of them haven't even completed their debt periods as well. But at the same time, there is we all fully understand that because of I mean, definitely when once we did the agreements, the demand of Pakistan, the industrial demand, that actually didn't grow at the pace we were expecting at that time. So definitely a lot of these facilities that we have are being underutilized. Then come to one of the very important points, and this is perhaps going to be one of our very key intervention areas, that is the investment challenges we currently have. Especially talking about, I mean, especially a lot of energy sector in Pakistan has been developed under the broader framework of China-Pakistan economic corridor, but we all fully understand, and let's be very open and candid about it, that a lot of the invested that currently exist in Pakistan, they're facing a number of challenges. Investments are stuck there. Uh, there are a lot of market risks and demand uncertainties that we actually talk about. A lot of policy and regulatory shifts in Pakistan have been there, not just talking about the, I mean, definitely the energy policies, the changes in energy policy or renewable energy targets. That's actually one of the very key challenges. But other than that, we do not have that policy certainty that is required for an investment friendly landscape as well. And again, talking about the even the policies that are in place, for instance, if we talk about for renewable energy, there's alternate and renewable energy policy 2019 that has a must run status for renewable energy projects. But again, we'll see a lot of challenges coming on those ends as well. Lastly, when we talk about definitely the renewable energy transition, the grid challenges there, the grid of current grid of Pakistan. I mean, since the investments have been focused too much towards the generation side, that we haven't actually bring a grid on par with which the that is actually required for that uptake as well. Then again, grid constraints, high losses, and when we actually, I mean, the whole thing actually needs. I mean, where do we bring the finance? So when we actually talking about bringing the finance, you really need to understand how different financing mechanisms actually work, and that's one of the purpose of this workshop, that we actually wanted to talk to the commercial banks over here on how to sort of what instruments does sort of come up in very close context of Pakistan. So that's something that's the sort of the challenge are there. Now talking about what opportunities are there? I mean, when we talk about renewable energy, one thing we need to understand that it's now not just because of the environment. We have to go towards renewable energy because now it makes a much better economic case. So it's not basically the environment that we're talking about. Secondly, I mean, talking about the renewable energy costs substantial decrease over the last few decades, in fact, and the cost is still coming down. So definitely, this is something that's eventually going to go further down, and that's how it makes a very strong economic case going further. Then the second thing is that, I mean, just beyond the power sector, the reason we need to decarbonize the grid is because now we are already facing a lot of challenges, especially for the industries, as they have to decarbonize themselves to sort of comply themselves with some of the export regulations. For instance, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is there, especially once after some time when it comes down to the textile sector. Pakistan's textile sector is all sort of export oriented, so that's going to become a lot of major challenge. We'll talk about it in detail. I believe Dr. Khalid will be highlighting. But even now, going beyond the industries, when we talk about a lot of the financing institutions, here are sustainable lending requirements. That's something that's again coming very quickly into the whole debate about the low carbon development. The ESG disclosures are sort of coming up. Investor guidelines, financial disclosures are there. Incentives for green lending are constantly increasing. So definitely, that's one of the very key drivers there. And last but not the least, definitely climate diplomacy, how renewables sort of support your national determined contributions, how it supports your climate action. That's definitely there. Now, let's look at, I mean, we're talking a lot about the renewable energy, but we need to understand two interplays that are in play. One is the change in Pakistan that is happening at the utility scale. And then one is the change that is happening in a Pakistan that is at the off grid scale. And you can again see such a big difference that exists if you talk about the decentralized solar, or the solar PVs that are being installed on the rooftop of Pakistan, on the agriculture of fields of Pakistan. Pakistan is currently one of the leading markets in that context. I mean, if I talk about currently, we have roughly around like 43 to 44 gigawatt of capacity, utility scale capacity. You need to understand that we just sort of imported around 16 gigawatt of solar PVs only in 2024 at a cost of roughly around like 3 to 4 billion. For 14, it was, I believe, 2.1 billion. But this is a field where Pakistan is one of the leading markets of the whole world. And how the transition is happening, that transition is happening through the initiatives or through the commitments which the local people, the local communities, they are themselves driving that change, which is also known in Pakistan as the solar rush that is happening. So again, on one end, Pakistan is actually bleeding at one front, but at the same time, and perhaps a good starting point is that at the utility scale level, we actually haven't developed a renewable energy portfolio as it should have been. I mean, since you talk about ever, there has been 2.6 gigawatt of renewables present at the utility scale. So again, we'll just very quickly see what's actually happening. So this is the utility scale developments that have happened in Pakistan from one of the reports of Renewables First, and also sort of post one questions when we actually sort of go towards a discussion that for the utility scale developments, I mean, you really need to sort of understand the context that uh, over the past few years, if at least we look at the last 3 to 4 years, 3 years, there has been no financial closure for any of the renewable energy projects. I'll give a bit of a context in that going forward as well. But yeah, definitely, if we talk about the utility scale investment, they have been roughly around like 4.6 billion, with 81% of them going to the wind, the rest going to the solar. There is some in pipeline as well. So one thing that we'll sort of try to understand is that of all the challenges that these power projects are facing, or the reason exactly why we haven't been able to develop the renewable energy at utility scale, what do we need to do? How do we actually sort of de-risk the investments, and how that's actually happening? So that's going to be the first question we'll sort of try to figure out today. The second is again that we talked about Pakistan's solar PV rush, the 16 gigawatt figure, the import values. I mean, what another thing we really need to understand is that a lot of this, a significant portion of this, is happening through the support of Chinese, because that they are the mainly ones from where we are sort of importing these solar PV, and then a lot of other initiatives have Pakistan recently signed as well. And just to sort of give you other figures, that this intake of import of solar PVs is not stopping. Just in the very start of, if we look at the past couple of months, we have imported another 5 gigawatt of solar PV into the country. So that is a trend that will sort of continue in the coming years. The reason because the people think of this energy as comparatively a more cheaper source than sort of going into the grid. But again, there are a lot of interventions, a lot of areas to which we can further support that. So this is now where, I mean, just a couple of instruments where the role of financing institutions come in, and how do we actually go about that? I mean, definitely, if we talk generally, then financing institution or this transition happen, the role comes in two places for energy transition. One is, again, you sort of provide a more enabling policies, and the second is you again sort of go through the route of different monetary policies there, your policy rates are there. So when we actually talk about the first important thing that comes around the monetary policy, where to enable this transition, you can go for the preferential interest rate, carbon pricing tax, and the loan assessments that could be there. Blended and concessional financing mechanisms is going to be one of the very key areas for which we are going to focus today. For example, Asian Development Bank launched this energy transition mechanism in Pakistan with the purpose of enabling the investments going into renewable energy, and also how do mechanisms such as energy transition mechanism, ETM, enable the transition or finance the mobilize the finance to go away from the fossil fuel as well. Then risk sharing facilities are there, a lot of credit, green credit lines are there. The third thing that actually comes up around is scaling instruments and capital markets. Definitely talking about, we already have a green bond, sustainability linked bonds are there. Carbon markets is just again going to be one of the very important component that is there, especially in the context of Pakistan, when we have just recently launched a carbon market policy, as well as the guidelines for trading under carbon markets as well. Last but not the least, and perhaps one of the most important points, and that's where the role of regulators come in, that is in strengthening the governance, mainly through green taxonomy or mandating these ESG disclosures as well, or going for the public-private partnerships models for the RE infrastructure. So just ending this before we go towards a more technical presentation from Dr. Khalid Waleed, uh, how SDPI is sort of doing this, or what is the new initiative that SDPI has taken. So we have developed this initiative, which is called enabling the green financing framework in Pakistan, in which we are working in very close collaboration with the State Bank of Pakistan in scoping some of the very priority solutions that can address the issue in the context of Pakistan. So this is going to be a 2 years program. I'll show you what's about to happen in the first year. But again, through this, we'll develop a de-risking framework for renewable energy in Pakistan, and then come up with a priority policy solution or instruments that are very relevant, particularly in the case of Pakistan. The second angle would be, I mean, doing a lot of consultations, because we want the whole discussion to be very inclusive. We want the inputs from all the generators present over here, from all the commercial banks present over here, what their thoughts are. So there's going to be almost a number of capacity building, or more importantly, the consultative sessions as well. Just ending this with this timeline, that this is again going to be, this is the first consultation that we are doing. Along with that, we have developed an advisory group that will be working on this. That includes the State Bank of Pakistan. From the commercial banks, we initially have HBL with us and Bank of Punjab. And other than that, we have two private sectors with us. One is the China Three Gorges, and one is again the financing institutions from the Chinese side, that is Sinosure. And then Dr. Christoph, who's also joined us online, is a part of the advisory group. We'll be sharing the details with you. And then, yeah, this was sort of the particular timeline. We'll definitely keep you updated. But with this going towards a technical presentation for this, let me invite Dr. Khalid Waleed, who will be talking a bit on the financing instruments that are very relevant to the case of Pakistan. And after that, we'll go towards Dr. Christoph Nedopil-Wang, who will be talking about broadly from the framework of, since a lot of investments are there in the CPEC, he'll be talking a lot from that perspective on how Chinese ecosystem compliant green financing framework can be established in Pakistan. So with this, thank you so much. And let me invite Dr. Khalid is currently working as a research fellow at SDPI, and he's an energy economist with a lot of experience. But yeah, I believe with this, Dr. Khalid, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ubad. Thank you so much, everyone. Ubad has made my job very easy. I would not be spending much of your time here. But alternate financing mechanisms to support low carbon development. Jabbar Saab has said a very important thing, that the policies, particularly the financial policies, they should complement economic growth. This is the crux that the policymakers, uh, either they are economic policymakers, they are energy planners, they should follow, that each of their policies, they should be pro-growth policies, and growth should be inclusive. That is the formula for Pakistan's development. Going forward, delving right into it, Pakistan's energy economics, it is in turmoil because we haven't integrated it with our macroeconomics. If you see this table, you'll see that Pakistan's capacity charges, they have been bifurcated here. There are capacity charges in terms of fixed O&M, fixed O&M local, cost of working capital, insurance, debt repayment, interest rate. All of these are indexed with these macroeconomic indicators, US CPI, national CPI, KIBOR, LIBOR. Recently, they have shifted it from KIBOR, LIBOR, but still, you'll see that there is 273% change, there is 98% change, there is 548% increase in the cost of working capital due to fuel prices, due to KIBOR, due to depreciation of exchange rate, and due to that, 2016, the capacity charges of one of the coal power plant was 3.7 rupee per unit. It has increased to around 12.47 rupee in 2024. So this is the impact of macroeconomics on energy, and there is impact of energy on macroeconomics. So this is a vicious cycle that Pakistan needs to break. What is the solution? The solution is obviously the financial instruments, how to bring about change in the financial patterns flowing into Pakistan's real estate or other sectors towards a pro-growth, inclusive growth sectors, helping Pakistan's energy situation as well. So export-led growth, import substitution, industrial growth, climate-smart trade. Ubaid has talked about CBAM coming. So we need to integrate it with macroeconomics, then the problem is going to solve. I'm just building this context. If you see the capacity charges, you'll see nuclear power plants. They are the one having the most capacity charges, followed by imported coal. And if you combine these two power plants, imported coal and thermal power plants, the coal power plants are the ones with highest capacity charges in Pakistan, followed by Hydel, RLNG, and wind. Again, if you see the Sahiwal coal power plant, you'll see there is a exponential increase if you compare 2015 with 24. Same is the case for Port Qasim, same is the case for China Hub power plant. And this trend does not stop. This trend does not stop just for the Chinese power plants. It is again visible for the thermal power plants as well. You'll see 3.6 rupee per unit capacity charge has increased to 12.9 rupee per unit for the Thal Nova power plant. Same is the case for Power Gen and Thar Energy Limited as well. One another thing that now globally, the investments and financial flows for coal power plants, they have stopped. They are limited. The risk in coal power investments, the fossil fuel-based power plants is increasing. One of the example is this Sinosure fee for Gwadar plant that is planned in Gwadar, 300 megawatts. When it was started in 2018, the guarantee fee for the Sinosure was 2.1 million USDs. In 2024, there is a modification of the PPA, the agreement. Now it has increased to whopping 32.56 million USDs. So there is more risk in energy sector. It is not just for the coal sector, it is for the Pakistan's energy sector. That's why Ubaid indicated that no financial closure was done for the solar power plant that was presented for the bid by PPIB. Again, if you see this fuel cost, again, increased project cost has increased from 292.8 million USDs to 444.49 million USDs. So the business in power sector in Pakistan, it is very expensive right now. We need to cater for that as well. Again, linking it with pro-growth strategies, inclusive growth strategies, high industrial growth strategies. CBAM is one thing that would be the key in 2030. Obad highlighted textile sector would be affected. All the sectors, Pakistan, particularly the exports, would be affected. If you see this fourth panel, this is the comparison of uh, carbon intensity of electricity with EU, Pakistan's comparison. And Pakistan is 1.4 times more carbon intensive as compared to the EU's national grid. What does it mean? And these estimates are from World Bank's CBAM exposure index, which sort of estimates what is the comparative positioning of countries in terms of CBAM affected rates. So these have been updated around Pakistan, 1.76 times more carbon intensive as compared to EU. What does it mean? If we are exporting 1 unit to EU at the price of 100 euros, after CBAM, if the situation remains the same and the grid remains highly carbon intensive, the price will increase to 140 euros. And this will hurt Pakistan's export competitiveness. We need to cater for that as well. Again, the demand is declining. And when demand declines, electricity demands decline, the per capita capacity charges, they sort of increase. In Pakistan, due to solar boom, the demand has declined in fiscal year 23. In 24, year-on-year basis, it also showed the decline. We need to increase the generation, increase the demand. One way is to utilize our power plants. But if there is a CBAM coming and there is a solar rush, we need to invest in renewable energy technologies, in renewable energy power plants, so that industry can get electricity on affordable, reliable, but sustainable rates as well, and sustainably as well. So what to do? Yep, that's a question for you. Okay, so what to do? Early retirement of coal power plants. We do not need expansion in Pakistan's electricity capacity. Uh, I mean, you can attract so many, you can ask for so many investments in wind and solar, but they will not make any economically feasible case for Pakistan unless you retire some of the fossil fuel-based capacity or bring demand to the grid. And then uptake of renewable energy and storage, increasing the demand of the grid in terms of industrial or pro-growth sectors. These are some of the one of the framework that I've been working on in terms of financial mechanism for energy transition. There are obviously public financing mechanism. We need to get rid of it. Maybe the government should, maybe laissez-faire is the option, where classical school of thought in economics, what it say that there is no role of the government in market. So government should facilitate the market. There is no public financing mechanism right now feasible for Pakistan because of the IMF conditionalities and other macroeconomic constraints. Private financing, right now in Pakistan, you all know that the investment climate in Pakistan is kind of a low right now, the investor confidence. Although it is booming, interest rates are declining, policy rates are declining, equity financing, debt financing, green bonds, very important. Recent examples shows that billions of dollars have been invested through this instrument, particularly when you see it in a context. My friend Christoph would be highlighting more on Chinese aspect, but still the panda bonds may be a key for Pakistan's energy sector. Recently, finance minister has announced that Pakistan would be announcing its panda bonds in May or June. If we link panda bonds with sustainable practices just on the Egyptian model, maybe we can solve Pakistan's crisis, energy crisis, through panda bonds. Market-based mechanism, carbon pricing is there. But one thing to be very careful of, Shakib Saab was suggesting that globally, the carbon credit market, they do not give carbon credits to renewable energy projects anymore, particularly the higher standards, the good standards, Vera and Gold standard. So we need to sort of look for how renewable energy projects can be integrated with carbon credit projects, particularly those who are with higher prices. For example, nature-based solutions. For example, growing mangroves, but powered with solar power. So instead of claiming carbon credits for solar boom, we need to make solar boom integrated with carbon credit projects in such a way the market, the renewable energy market, would be more economically feasible, more beneficial for the investors. They would be investing more on renewable energy projects. Innovating financing mechanisms, crowdfunding, energy service companies, blockchain-based financing, but Pakistan is far behind. Very few energy companies are on stock exchange. Uh, State Bank of Pakistan, due to IMF's limitations, cannot provide these sort of subsidies. So we need to sort of delve into details how we can link the IMF conditionalities and how can we find a way that is compatible with IMF's conditionalities and attractive for the renewable energy market as well. One another way that can be done is maybe using these innovative financial mechanisms such as JETPs, Just Energy Transition Partnerships, ETMs. Ubaid talked about JETPs and ETMs. Let me go into a little more detail. South Africa claimed the first JETP. They got around $7 to $8 billion. Their JETP plan is around 80 billion USDs to transform the whole economy, not just the energy sector. They're talking about how to decarbonize the power sector, how to bring new energy vehicles, EVs, and how to bring new industries, particularly green hydrogen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to cater for that as well, but it should be apolitical, a very long-term integrating plan if we want to have JETPs for the case of Pakistan. Ubaid also mentioned that there is a problem with Pakistan's coal power plants, that they are very young in their age. If they are young, early retirement would not be feasible through JETPs or ETMs. There is one another mechanism. There is one another mechanism known as Coal to Clean Credit Initiative. About just 2 minutes. Okay. Coal to Clean Credit Initiative. What it does, it instead of issuing carbon credits to renewable energy power plants, it issues carbon credits to retirement of coal power plants, so that when the coal consumption is declined, CO2 levels would decline, and you can claim carbon credits for that. That is where Pakistan's economic feasibility lies, particularly in terms of early retirement of coal power plants. There is philanthropic capital coming into this domain. Rockefeller is starting 2 pilot projects, one in Vietnam and one in Philippines. The government can talk about it. And financial instruments like Bank of Punjab is sitting over here, State Bank, Stock Exchange, and SECP, they can devise the mechanisms how to sort of initiate these innovative financial mechanisms. So let me just move a bit further. Banking instruments, particularly in terms of guarantees. First is your partial risk guarantees. Right now in Pakistan, we all know that renegotiation of PPAs is continued, is going on. Although it is good for consumers, the energy prices might come down, but it won't be good for investors. So we need to look for the partial risk guarantees. Maybe State Bank of Pakistan, with the help of World Bank and other IFIs, can provide these guarantees so that renewable energy power initiatives, they can get these guarantees and investors have confidence in the market. Second is political risk insurance. Particularly in terms of, again, change in the government, change in the policies, due to which these projects, they get costlier, they get more, they won't be more economically feasible. Green bonds, again, China is taking lead in that. If you see, ICBC has issued green bonds to finance renewable energy in China and offshore. There are blended financing mechanisms, particularly using IFC's facilities, using GIF and other blended finance facilities. And very important for Pakistan, currency and interest rate hedging. ये पहले नहीं सोचा गया when we were signing these PPAs. We indexed our capacity charges with dollars, with interest rate. Now these have increased from 3 rupee to around 12 rupee. if we would have could have sought these mechanisms, just like TCX fund support for renewable energy in Kenya, what they did is, if there is depreciation in local currency, they are going to finance that. If we would have done that, Pakistan's energy sector will be in a very good position. And then lastly, warehouse financing and green securitization. Lastly, there is another mechanism that is known as positive screening mechanism, which means that whenever bank is going to finance a project, they went through a process known as negative screening, which means they go for the risk mitigation, analysis of risk, what are different risks associated with it, but they do not see the benefits. Renewable energy has these benefits of mitigation, CO2 reduction, community support. Maybe in that regard, if they follow the positive screening method, renewable energy projects would be more feasible. Before going into China, I'll request to Bad so that Christoph can present his findings, and then I will come back for the China.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Khalid, and apologies for sort of stopping you in the middle. Yeah, I believe Dr. Christoph, thank you so much for joining us, especially when we start talking about China. Dr. Christoph Wang, he's currently director of Griffith Asia Institute, and is one of the leading experts when you talk about the investments and how they can greening of the investments coming under the broader framework of BRI. So just in the interest of time, Dr. Christoph, are you with us?
I
Yeah,
am.
thank you.
Good to
Yes,
see you
thank
all.
you. Thank you so much. Fully understanding you're running late. So with this, over to you. Thank you so much for joining.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you can see me and see my presentation. What a pleasure to be here. And it's been such a kind of already wealth of information. Always happy to see such interest in kind of Pakistan about green finance. And really, I think there's a lot of kind of very excellent work that SDBI and Renewables First and PCI and all of you are doing. Always kind of very, very excited to hear about the progress that you're making. Also very interesting kind of to see some of the statistics that you really pulled out. Now, I will keep it very short and because I have an appointment, unfortunately, afterwards. But I will kind of focus on some of the kind of areas of work that I've been doing. Of course, I've been working with the Chinese green finance system, and particularly in the BRI and CPEC for a number of years. So let's start kind of where we are right now. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay.
yes, we can.
Excellent. So kind of obviously we are in a climate crisis and it's not getting better. So we are seeing the hottest year on Earth in 2024, just kind of to remind us the risks of climate change are just kind of really starting to bite. I think we're just seeing the beginning. So it's really kind of important to accelerate the work, not accelerating the work that we're doing and not financing the green energy transition is going to be more and more painful and more costly for our economies, but even more so for our people and our nature. And kind of, I want to start with that. Physics is the law. All else is an opinion. Climate change is bloody physics. And whether the US has a new administration that does not believe in climate change, it does not matter. Physics is the law. Climate change is unfortunately physics. It will not go away by just wishing it away. And so addressing it is extremely important. So the question, what are some of the instruments for climate finance, and particularly also kind of how does China's involvement in this kind of green finance and particularly green BRI and potentially green CPEC finance changes, and what are some of the opportunities that I also see? It's really kind of here just an overview of kind of all of the different guidelines from the different Chinese government institutions, State Council, the National Development Reform Commission, Ministry of Commerce, and so on, from 2012 to 2022, where we see kind of that there has always been this idea of green, but all of the green finance and green project finance and green development guidelines have always kind of said you're green as long as you apply host country standards. And obviously, a lot of countries, and potentially even Pakistan, according to Equator Principles, does not have kind of a strong governance system to really implement these green standards domestically. And so the idea has always been in finance, let's apply international standards, international agreements, and particularly IFC standards. And really kind of since 2020, we've seen kind of these green dots that pretty much all of the new guidelines coming out from all of the relevant ministries are now saying we have to apply international green finance standards and green risk management standards. And that is really kind of one of the big changes. The other one that I don't have a slide on here is that kind of the risk management, particularly sovereign risk management of the public guaranteed debt has really changed. And so the government-to-government contracts that Pakistan in particularly has relied on that had potentially less economic and more political kind of considerations. This has gone away to a large extent. It's not fully gone away. There's still a lot of government-to-government contracts and negotiations, but overall, kind of the financial risk management plus the environmental risk management have really improved that changes the financing landscape of the BRI. There's also kind of been a lot of work done on kind of green development guidelines, project finance guidelines, and so on. So I think the traffic light system that really kind of hammered out what are specific guidelines to for financial institutions and developers to become more green, that were supported by the Belt and Road Initiative, International Green Development Coalition, MEE, and several others, really kind of drove this idea of green finance. So kind of when we develop projects, when we work with Chinese, I think on the one hand, we can demand more. On the other hand, they are also demanding more because they need to increasingly meet these standards. So there's a lot of work that has been done from the BRIGC that is publicly available, and very detailed guidelines, again, for financial institutions and developers that they need to ideally kind of incorporate in their decision-making. Similar, kind of one of the things that we also looked at is in project finance, and of course, a lot of the green IPPs and green, or also all the fossil fuel projects, but we just talked about Guadar as well, but the green projects are under a project finance scheme. So understanding kind of also how China is moving and its understanding of financing projects, what are the kind of stipulations in the pre-feasibility, in the feasibility to kind of actually get this project going is extremely important. We are actually conducting research right now to understand what are challenges and risks and kind of risk management strategies on green IPPs, particularly for Pakistan and Indonesia vis-a-vis the Chinese. And it was interesting to see that kind of there was not a lot of financial closures of green projects in Pakistan over the last years, which is, of course, not what we are hoping for. But it's important to understand kind of how Chinese think about project finance and where they want to allocate risk. And it used to be much more on kind of this public guarantees that allowed China to finance relatively affordable. Now, of course, we know that Pakistan is kind of has sovereign debt issues. And that has kind of also shifted this whole idea of what are public guarantees actually doing. Are they reducing our risks, or are they actually increasing our risk, and we're not actually allocating our risks? So it's really important to kind of understand throughout these project phases, which we have here, kind of what are opportunities to accelerate working with China on green and socially responsible projects. It's also interesting kind of to see how the financing instruments have therefore changed. And here kind of I just want to highlight two of the findings that we had there as well. Coal, gas, and hydropower, where kind of the project features are very clear, relatively stable cash flows. You just have kind of a good PPA. And so they required good PPAs and possibly sovereign guarantee. And it was possible to finance actually a lot of corporate finance for these coal IPPs. Now with solar and wind, it's very different. The financing modalities have changed, and kind of we really kind of trying to also follow up what's going on in the market, and particularly also with the Chinese, where originally there was a lot of more private companies that were engaged in it, a lot more export, less operators, so build, own, operate models. Now we're seeing again more build, own, operate models also in the green space. So it's very interesting to see kind of what are the requirements in terms of financing structures, risk management structures to drive this green IPPs. The advantage of green IPPs compared to fossil fuel IPPs is the green IPPs do have a lot more access to diverse international financing sources, a lot more flexible financing models than previously with the fossil fuel. So it's actually, I think, an opportunity, but it's also, of course, we have to kind of build more capacity around understanding these financing sources. Now, I will skip some slides here and just talk a little bit about the issue of greening sovereign debt. And there's also kind of, we've engaged with kind of a number of different institutions in China, and this is still a lot of conversations ongoing. And we published kind of in the end a report with the United Nations Development Program on kind of reorienting sovereign debt to support nature and the SDGs. And a whole kind of chapter was actually on how can Pakistan utilize kind of its debt that it has, sovereign debt with China, to green kind of to support greening of the economy. And there's a whole lot of different instruments to really also not only look at kind of the corporate finance, but of course also on the public guaranteed finance. And this is really an opportunity, particularly between Pakistan and China, where a lot of the existing debt is actually public guaranteed debt, where Pakistan, so to say, owes money to Chinese IPPs, coal-fired power plants, and so on for the operation. And so the question is kind of how can we utilize some of this goodwill, some of the debt to through restructuring to actually do something more green that accelerates our green energy transition and a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So kind of in this report, and you can download it with this link, we focus on kind of debt reorganization, so existing debt reorganization and new debt or climate aligned debt. And of course, we talked a little bit about it before. Khaled talked about it before, about so thematic bonds, sovereign thematic bonds. But the really interesting part is, of course, the debt reorganization of the existing debt, and particularly debt conversion, debt for climate, debt for renewable energy swaps, and so on. And this is particularly interesting vis-a-vis China, because China has a very specific debt structure. And I believe strongly that Pakistan can be an extremely interesting case also for the Chinese side to work on these debt conversions. Happy to also provide some examples at a different time, kind of how it has already kind of been very successfully applied, this concept of a debt for nature swap in over the last years. We've really seen a lot more financial institutions putting their head around this, a lot more governments trying to apply these debt conversions. And I'm really hopeful that, of course, with some financial engineering, we can also succeed in Pakistan. Two more things that I want to share, and thank you for kind of giving me this time. Particularly since we mentioned coal retirement, we did also a lot of work with Pakistan and with China to understand kind of how can we accelerate coal retirement, and kind of also potentially even with an idea of a green debt for renewable energy swap. The basic principle is not that, by the way, kind of young coal-fired power plants through refinancing are much more easy to retire than old coal-fired power plants. Keep in your head an old coal-fired power plant that had been operational and kind of where the debt is paid off. That's cash flow, kind of where cash flow is profit. And a new coal-fired power plant, most of the cash flow will go to the creditors. So the creditors actually make money in order to pay back the debt. Refinancing ideally allows us to reduce this financing costs, so the interest rate, and ideally through this refinancing we can we can create a higher value for the coal-fired power plant. But this is in exchange for early retirement. So here is a very clear refinancing mechanism that ideally comes with a credit enhancement. Again, the credit enhancement should come through kind of the promise to retire early and the commitment to retire early. And what's interesting, particularly in countries like Pakistan that have still a growing energy need, the question is not only how do we retire, but how do we retire and bundle it with renewable? And this is, of course, also possible through kind of a refinancing, concessional loans, and where also the old capital providers, and that should be, of course, the Chinese as well, kind of benefit from this structure, rather than kind of really taking a hit. And that's really something I think that we've shown over the last year, that it's possible for the investors to benefit from early coal retirement through kind of smart financing mechanisms, and particularly refinancing. I will kind of just finish with one thought, as I always like to do. I hope you all know this trolley dilemma. Trolley dilemma is you're standing at this crossing of a railway, and you see that the trolley goes down the hill, and it's supposed to kind of, unfortunately, there are a number of people on the tracks. Are you kind of, and if you do nothing, all of these people will be run over by the trolley. You have the opportunity to change the direction of the trolley. By changing the direction of the trolley, you save all these people, but you have to kill one person. Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to save everyone, but actively kill one person? This is the trolley dilemma. That's kind of not a solved problem. It's a dilemma that everybody has to answer for themselves. I believe we are in this stage, kind of, we have to think about, are we willing to kill the fossil fuel economy in order to save everyone? We have to provide alternatives. But if we don't kill the fossil fuel economy, most likely our emissions will drastically impact a lot of us. So I'll end with this: physics is a law, all else is an opinion. Where I started. Thank you so much, and best of luck for the rest of your conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Christoph. That was really inciting, especially the instruments that you talked about. And I hope it would be fine if we can later share your presentation with the participants as well, because some of them were a bit unclear. So yeah, if it's okay with you, we would also sort of like to share these slides with the participants. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much once again. So I believe continuing with, yes, Dr. Khalid's some present slides that were left around the China. So if I can request Dr. Khalid to please join us on the podium and finish that. And after that, we'll be going towards initially regulators and SECP, Pakistan Stock Exchange, and then coming towards the generators, renewable energy developers, and then the financing institutions as well. But as of now, Dr. Khalid, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vad. Thank you, Christoph. I really wanted to have this context. Oh, sorry. I really wanted to have this context for Christoph so that he can delve into details. But still, he have to leave for another meeting. But one thing, maybe we can slow down the trolley and bring that fossil fuel industry back to the renewable energy fold gradually in a just transition way. Shakib Saab just gave me this thought. So China, Pakistan's lots and lots of investments in power sector is in China. If you see this from China, if you see this pie chart, you'll see total Chinese investments in energy sector around 21 to 27 billion USDs. They are primarily in coal, 27%, hydro, 23%, but a lot more on nuclear. As Christoph was talking about G2G arrangements, most of the investment has come G2G basis. And if you see what are different Chinese players, are banks involved in it, you'll see that these black lines show that 100% investments is in coal, and you'll see that most of the investment is in coal. If you see China's Ministry of Commerce, they are investing in wind. Bank of Yangzhou, it is again investing in wind, but still lots and lots of investment either goes to coal, nuclear, or in hydro. This is again Chinese investments in energy sector by banks. Axiom Bank in China, they are the most funded investor in Pakistan. 58% of total Chinese investment in energy sector has come through the Exim Bank of China, followed by CBD China Development Bank. Why this slide is very important, that in China, if you see the governance philosophy in China, it is two-pronged. If you see China's Exim Bank, it balances two imperatives. China's rational ambition as a new development provider to developing world. Obviously, they want to finance the development of the world, developing world, but also they want to achieve China's industrial goal, particularly in terms of investing into fossil fuel-based assets offshore. Although there is a moratorium that China will not finance any coal power plant offshore, but still some of the investment goes into that regard as well. In contrast, the China Development Bank prioritizes its commercial interest, and they are still lending money to fossil fuel-based power plants, which means that there are two different philosophies going on. Some of the banks, they are financing renewable energy power plants, and some of them are financing coal-based or fossil fuel or thermal-based power plants. What the financial institutions in Pakistan needs to do, establish this communication line, constant communication with those who are supporting renewable energy, and make a bankable case, make a conducive environment for the renewable energy power plants, so that the renewable energy investors, they get sensitized, incentivized, so that more uptake of these renewable energy can be started in Pakistan. Again, it should be linked with some of the capacity, coal capacity to early retired. What does it mean? That there are alternate policies in banks in China, obviously state policy, but still there are one supporting RE development, one supporting the thermal power development as well. What is the way forward, particularly for financial institutions and the government? One thing that was again highlighted by the engineer Jabbar Saab, that the policies should be pro-growth, inclusive, but policies should be integrating as well. Maybe at the one hand, fiscal policy, they are focused on how to provide affordable or relief to the consumers. Monetary policy might have other goals, so it should be integrating. Formulation of just energy transition working group of regional community, because without regional community, without region coming together, it would not be feasible, particularly for JETPs, ETMs, and CCCI. Again, we need to have this integrated energy economics plan, not just the energy plan. If you isolate energy, again, you'll get in a trap of capacity and other sort of thing, where there would be vicious cycle of affordability, sustainability, reliability that needed to be linked with national industrial growth. Third is a P2X alliance. This was not discussed in the slides. I might have skipped it. But fourth is very important. That is upcoming green taxonomy by State Bank of Pakistan. What should it include? It should classify renewable energy projects eligible for concessional financing and risk mitigation. Right now, these power plants, these initiatives, coal power plants, thermal power plants, renewable energy power plants, they are taken as initiatives, investment initiatives. There should be categories, there should be positive screening, so that renewable energy power plants, they can be incentivized. Fifth is partial risk guarantees to banks for lending to IPP, solar, wind, and mini grid developers to mitigate payment default risk. It can be done. Obviously, there are conditionalities of IMF, but if we talk about the IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Trust, the fund, IMF, that give for climate resilience, that might be the way forward for Pakistan. Lastly, foreign exchange and interest rate hedging instruments. If we partner with IFIs and other institutions, we can make these long-term PPAs hedged for these risks, particularly in regard of depreciation in currency and increase in global exchange rates. That would sort of de-risk the environment, particularly for variable renewable energy plants in Pakistan. So there might be some things missing, particularly in regard of RE financing, refinancing that Christoph mentioned, but still it is a long way for Pakistan. Maybe if there is not integrated fiscal and financial and monetary policies, that might not happen, but still my sense would be that we need to integrate economy, energy, environment into one equation so that these financial instruments, they can provide the regulatory conducive environment for the RE uptake. But still, we need to early retire some of the coal power plants so that we can make room for these power plants. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much once again, Dr. Khalid, for coming back and explaining the context of why, I mean, the whole discussion around the China is extremely important. So, yeah, thank you. I believe we actually had the technical presentations from our end, but now we'll be going towards more of the discussion format and what you sort of think about it. But firstly, let's come to our special guest that we have. We're very pleased to have been joined by Ms. Musarrat Jabin, who's currently the Executive Director of Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, SECP. And thank you so much, Ms. Musarrat, for joining us. We fully understand that you actually had to travel from Karachi to Islamabad just today. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. So we actually have been having this debate, but especially talking about any sort of transition when it comes to finance. Definitely the role of the central bank, the role of SECP, the role of PSX, that's extremely important. So again, given the discussion that we actually have been having, if you have any particular response on the discussion that I've had, and also how SECP in itself sees the whole of its role in the whole green transition debate, and how, if there are any particular challenges that we actually want to sort of address before going towards this journey. So really looking forward to your interventions, and thank you once again for joining us. So with this, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ubaid, and I Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and I really miss being there in person, of course, because I was there in Karachi at that OICCI event, and happened to, of course, meet also Khalid Saab and other members. But nevertheless, I mean, it's definitely an honor for me to be representing SECP at this occasion, and especially as we explore the critical role these financial markets and financial institutions typically play in driving any country's transition to a cleaner and more sustainable energy. So I think there is a lot that has already been very well and eloquently explained by Khalid Saab, by yourself in your presentation, and by Dr. Christoph. So, but as we witness basically the escalating climate crisis when it comes to Pakistan, my personal 2 cents would be that this for Pakistan, the transition to renewable energy is definitely not something which is an option. It's not an environmental necessity. That's how I would feel. I think it's more of an economic imperative. So अभी थोड़ी देर पहले आपने बात भी की थी regarding the bonds, the panda bonds that the government of Pakistan is also considering. So it is actually the government is I would say very actively pursuing some kind of I would say maybe at large sized and large scaled renewable energy investment as part of its energy goals. और आपको याद होगा कि under that nationally determined contributions, Pakistan has set an ambitious target reducing its greenhouse emissions by तकरीबन मेरे ख्याल से 50% or so by 2030. So I believe with the clean energy expansion playing a crucial role in achieving this objective is something that just not the financial institutions, but also the public at large needs to be considering. Because the key strategy that involves increasing the share of renewable energy overall Pakistan ke liye, obviously in its energy mix, including wind, the solar, the hydropower, etc. But nevertheless, I mean, we continue to face significant structural challenges as our energy sector. From agar hum dekhein, I think this is something which is very, very important, and who would understand more than corporates and the financial sector. Circular debt se leke overall our over I would say reliance on imported fossil fuels, I think, which basically drives up the energy costs, and it limits the investment in cleaner technology. So this makes it I would say very, very imperative to look for innovative solutions to actually accelerate our transition to a cleaner and low carbon energy world. So I would like to basically say that, just to highlight that the context of the corporate sector, just in the context of the corporate sector, that the capital markets, and I think you also rightly highlighted, that there are guidelines that the SECP had also issued with respect to green bonds, but there aren't any green bonds. So the role of the regulator has increasingly evolved to I would say to address climate change and to facilitate climate financing. So SECP had a number of interventions, and I think my personal two cents on this would be that there's lots happening in this country, but probably more, in different buckets and different silos, and there is a need primarily to, knit together all these interventions. And inshallah ta'ala, with all of this, we can expect, of course, meeting our targets, although they seem to be, very aggressive. So I would say that SECP is very cognizant of it and recognizing that in addition to the corporate sector, of course, financial institution, banks, commercial banks हमारे हैं, insurance sector है, they and all other stakeholders, they are very central to driving this transition. So energy projects basically inherently carry a high risk and upfront cost also. This was something which had already been presented by the speakers before me. So as such, the role of financial institution is definitely indispensable. So these institutions have to have and they have the unique ability to mobilize the resources and de-risking ki jo baat hui, so de-risk the investments and structure innovative financing mechanism that will make clearly into my perspective a more energy projects jo jiske upar apne investments karni hai, so that they are more accessible and attractive to investors. I think basically in the interest of time, I would probably like to just concentrate and focus more on the SECP role in enabling financial institutions to drive clean energy transition. So at the SECP, as I've mentioned earlier, and that our prime objective was basically to strengthen the regulatory framework that basically would facilitate sustainable finance and encourage investments in renewable energy projects, particularly in area of like solar, wind, and hydropower. So under our ESG regulatory roadmap, which we introduced in 2022, and we thought that it's just, they can't just be roadmaps coming in, there needs to be an action plan. So we then set certain targets, certain milestone with respect to the ESG roadmap in an action plan, and that was very widely discussed with the stakeholders. So so the journey of basically integrating sustainability related consideration in our regulatory framework was our priority, which we did. And in addition to we had advocacy sessions, we had these capacity building sessions. ICAP was a big partner. UN Women had helped us a lot, in creating that awareness thing. So later then, it was just last year that we introduced and issued the ESG disclosure guidelines in 2024, which basically provide clear indicators with respect to the E, S, and G pillars, particularly under the environmental pillar. मैं आपको थोड़ा सा बता दूं, the disclosure basically that is required includes the the GHG emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3, and the energy usage with a strong focus on energy intensity and the proportion of energy that is consumed from renewable sources. So also indicators that have been added for disclosure by companies regarding climate risks, including transition and physical basically risks, and how companies are actually implementing these policies. This is all that has been provided in these guidelines. They are voluntary in nature at the moment because we've introduced them for the listed companies. But all companies are obviously free to go and adopt these. So sustainable sourcing and emissions reduction strategies are also that we've added in as indicators requiring basically the disclosures by the corporate to ascertain basically for companies as well as for the regulators as how they have aligned their operations with the environmental goals. So we're also working, based to determine the level of disclosure that are currently and assess if specific targets under the ESG disclosure guidelines can actually be given in line with Pakistan's NDC to further strengthen the efforts of the government of Pakistan also. I'm not sure, but I think personally speaking, now this is not on behalf of the Commission, I think we need to have, or the corporates need to have net zero targets, and then they need to also have plans to achieve those. But this should not just be necessarily something be driven by the ACCP or by the regulator, because that should make a business case for all the corporates. So the role of regulator in ensuring accountability is obviously very, very important, and therefore, we made amendments to the Code of Corporate Governance Regulations framework, also empowering the boards, to oversee their sustainability priorities and to have, specialized or, dedicated sustainability committees at the board level, mandated to form, mandated to overall, look into the sustainability targets, etc. So SECP's disclosure guidelines that I just spoke about, they are available on our website as well. They've been circulated through the Pakistan Stock Exchange, and are there for, these non-listed companies also to comply with. But companies, those, that align their sustainability efforts with the SEC ESG disclosure guidelines are also required to ensure that there is consistent reporting and, improve the the corporate accountability regarding environmental issues. So we've also seen that, regulators generally globally are increasingly focusing on, adopting the international sustainability standards like the ISSB standard S1 and S2. So in line with this, we've, following the extensive consultation that we had with ICAP and the other stakeholders, we have issued an order to all the companies for its phased adoption. And so in the first phase, it's basically companies that would have a certain, turnover like 25 billion or more, or it's not but or have, an asset size of 12.5 billion, or an employee number of 1,000 are required to make the disclosures on IFRS S2, basically the climate related disclosures. And in this is like effective July 1st, 2025 this year, for the fiscal year. And for the phase 2, basically it will be companies meeting half of the threshold. So this will be applicable from July 1st, 2026, and then in phase 3 it will be the remaining listed companies, and just not those remaining listed companies, but also public interest companies that the SECP licenses and registers. They are also required to basically adopt these disclosure standards. And I'm sure that you would agree that any disclosure framework that is definitely incomplete without any data. So what we've done is that we, after again extensive consultation with the stakeholders, and UN Women played a very, very helpful role here with the regulator. We introduced the centralized online portal, which is called the ESG Sustain. So, and we've invited companies to showcase their ESG performance by putting in their data, into their, climate related disclosure data into that, the portal. So additionally, efforts definitely are underway to enhance the visibility of companies in areas like climate financing, through capacity building and through collaboration with the key stakeholders to support the ESG sustain. And all the corporate sector being present there at this forum, I would also request them to please definitely make sure that there is maximum disclosure on their ESG performance, on the ESG sustain. So, our second area of focus has been, developing and promoting green financing instruments, which have a lot of been, spoken about this morning also. So such a green, bonds and sustainability linked financing models that Pakistan will be adopting, of course, आपने China की भी बात की, all makes sense. I think these instruments definitely play a very, very crucial and pivotal role in lowering the cost of capital for renewable energy projects, making them, I would say, more, attractive for both domestic as well as international investors. So, and globally there is, demand for ESG sukuks also, which is surging. And as per some data that I had, internationally, it's crossing about $8 billion, dollars it crossed $8 billion in 2022. So, while the SECP has launched the green bond guidelines, you initially mentioned, began 2021, we still don't have any green bonds, issued by the corporates. But the aim was obviously providing a framework for projects to project promoting environmental sustainability, including renewable energy use, waste management, clean transportation, etc. So I would say that SECP is also and had been focusing on strengthening the supply side. So I'm very happy to state that the government of Pakistan, aapne bhi mentioned kiya, is planning to actually issue the country's first sovereign green sukuk during the current quarter of 2025. So let's hope, if it keeps fingers crossed, inshallah wo ho jaye. But the third area of our focus is encouraging these commercial banks and issuers to develop tailored kind of products specifically for clean and energy sector. So this would include renewable energy loans, sustainability linked loans, insurance solutions that basically mitigate the risk associated with energy projects, particularly high risk areas. So SECP is working on holding advocacy sessions through collaboration with the key stakeholders, and ensuring that the sectors that work together provide customized and profitable solutions. So we are also actively working with the key stakeholders in capacity building, and which I always emphasize, because I think that is absolutely important in creating those sustainability indicator disclosures to ensure that your decisions they are drive through data. And I'm glad to see that SDPI has engaged with the relevant stakeholders today, and I see them sitting here, and indeed this is definitely a step in the right direction. So I would now like to probably briefly focus on how corporate sector in these financial industry is uniquely positioned or placed to take a leadership role in enabling Pakistan clean energy transition. So just a few points that I thought I would share with you. First, I think leveraging the fast development of solar energy is something that we need to work on. So the success of solar energy uptake in Pakistan, in my personal opinion, is a strong example of how financing can basically drive rapid adoption of renewable technology. So with the solar energy cost decreasing globally also, and the continuous rise also in the demand, because Pakistan mein bhi dekhein, you have these solar panels on every house. I think the demand for clean power is there, and Pakistan is very, very, very well placed to harness this moment. So banks and financial institutions definitely can play a major role in scaling, I would say, solar energy and solar projects by offering targeted financial products such as solar financing ki baat hui, some having some solar financing schemes, green loans, and perhaps lease to own models that are working internationally also, that make solar adoption more affordable and for just not consumers, individuals, but businesses as well. So the next would be I would say the de-risking investments of foreign investors. So as we welcomed, हमने China की भी बात की, as we basically welcome international investment in foreign investment, the Chinese investors are looking into entering the clean energy space. The SECP totally is stays committed to supporting mechanism that mitigates their perceived risk. So de-risking tools such as guarantees perhaps, or risk insurances, and perhaps blended finance kind of structures can help build confidence in these investments. So the Chinese investors have played a crucial role and in the overall infrastructure in Pakistan, and is therefore, I would say, has an opportunity to contribute to our cleaner energy transition as well. Even if we speak about the capital market, we all know the Chinese consortium has got a 40% stake in Pakistan Stock Exchange as well. There's a lot that we are working with them together on the capital market side. We just came back from China visit, a huge delegation at a very senior level came that went to China, met our counterparts, met the financial institution and the capital market participants. So again, I would say that a kind of ensuring that these investments are secured through an appropriate risk sharing model is absolutely something which is vital for fostering a long-term relationship and partnership in this space, because iske bagar to nahi hoega. People will not be coming into your markets. So we have to have innovative financing structures as well, which have a lot been also spoken in the morning. Financial sector may obviously to support the clean energy transition by developing some structured products tailored basically towards renewable energy needs is something which is unavoidable. Like sustainability linked bonds की हमने बात की, green bonds and renewable energy focused credit lines जो होती हैं, I mean our banks and financial institutions need to consider those, and probably they're already into it. So these are just few examples, how financing and institutions, these financial institutions can structure solutions to meet the specific challenges that are faced by the energy developers. So like these products obviously can ensure that financing is available for the projects, and it's a full scale implementation, I would say. I mean, it's not something that is something that we need to consider just at this point in time, but this is something for our futures, which is which we need to, and the financial institution need to actively work on. So another area would basically be fostering collaboration and partnerships. So SSCP has always advocated for collaborative efforts, and as mentioned earlier, also public-private partnership and the financial sector can also act as a bridge basically between the government, the government initiatives and international development institution, and obviously the local companies. So I would understand, like, by creating public-private partnership and exploring cross-border collaborations, the financing industry, the financial institution can actually act as a catalyst that can flow the capital into high impact and renewable projects, greener projects, and which may otherwise obviously be starving for the funds. So we at the SCCP are totally committed to creating an environment that supports the growth of green financing in Pakistan. So our role, I would say, is basically to ensure that the capital market are aligned with the sustainability goals and with the climate commitments that the government of Pakistan has. And by reducing obviously the financial barriers to clean and green investments. So we will continue to work with the corporate sector, the capital market, and all other stakeholders, basically, including the financial institution, the insurance sector that we regulate, and other stakeholders in this game, to develop the framework enabling them for to go towards investments in clean energy. And our regulatory framework will continue to ensure that Pakistan is well positioned and placed to leverage global financing mechanism. We mentioned earlier, like the green bonds, the climate funds,
so much,
and
Ms.
international
Musarrat, if I
climate
can-
financings.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Musarrat. It was extremely pleasure to listening from you. Definitely talking about the key enabling parameters and how to sort of take this transition forward, and definitely the very enabling and the key role of Securities and Exchange Commission as well. So, Ms. Musarrat, also the initiative we have taken, we do have again. We have established an advisory group that will sort of keep all the relevant stakeholders aware of all the developments that are happening, or the research, or the potential policy solutions, or the instruments that we are sort of scoping. Will definitely sort of keep you updated with any findings that the group comes up with. So once again, thank you so much. So moving forward, just before going to discussions with definitely all of you and hearing your opinions as well, let me come to Mr. Tariq Qureshi, who's currently working as the Deputy General Manager and Unit Head of Legal and Corporate Affairs at Pakistan Stock Exchange. So, sir, if we can have any brief interventions from you, and yes, we can continue our discussion from here on up, sitting up at our tables as well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Musarrat has also explained in detail a comprehensive. Are you? Yeah. Madam Musarrat has already explained in comprehensive all the things. I just want to add that we believe that capital markets are the bridge between sustainability and economic growth. Rather than we take this as a challenge, we should take this as an opportunity to raise the funds through the capital market, and as well as this towards green initiatives, and towards that can lead to a low carbon industry and to the net zero carbon in the world. So that and capital market can play a very crucial role in this. So that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tariq Qureshi Saab. Yes, definitely, and very important role of the capital markets. And if I can request our colleagues to please come back, we'll be definitely they'll be serving the tea as well as the snacks on the tables as well. Since we started 15 minutes late, we have to sort of go in a working tea mode. So apologies for that. So let me just have one last discussion from Dr. Sajid Amin Javed, who's currently working as the Deputy Executive Director of Research at SDPI. And since he's looking at these policies, frameworks, monetary policies, so perhaps Dr. Sajid, if we can have you, are you with us? Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. So with this, Dr. Sajid, over to you. Thank you. Dr. Sajid, your mic is on. We cannot hear you as of now. And in the meanwhile, let me also introduce Dr. Sajid is also sort of leading Pakistan's largest data for development program. And this is where we are already, SDPI is collaborating with a lot of the banking sector. So Dr. Sajid, if you can sort of try again, please.
Can you hear now?
Yes, perfect. Loud and clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Obed, thank you for inviting me, and I would join you in thanking all of the colleagues, those who have joined us in Karachi and online on behalf of SDPI. We are really thankful to you, all of you. And I think, as I always say, that all the good things are said already, 3, 4 very excellent presentations. So most of my messages may be a reiteration, but let me just give you 3 quick messages. Number one, I think we need to understand that transition to green energy is no longer a choice. I mean, it's not either or question. This is the compulsion that every country has to go for at least 2 reasons. I think the economic and environmental costs of non-green energy will be skyrocketing exponentially. And this is no more an environmental question now, it's economic viability as well. So the first message that I would like to leave in today's gathering here is that it's no more a choice. It's the compulsion that we have to do. And when I say compulsion, it doesn't mean next 10, 12, 20 years. It's a matter of 3 to 5 years when international markets will start conditioning your engagements in the global value chains on investments, on trade with this green energy share of green energy in your total energy basket. So I think this is not only for environment, but for economic viability and to be a global integrated country in terms of trade and investment. So that's my message number 1. I think the second, the message that I would sort of leave here is the residual focus on green energy sector will not work and it will not deliver. It hasn't delivered anywhere. You cannot separate green energy just for the sake of environment, that this is your environmental focus or the climate focus. Every policy of you, from fiscal policy to monetary policy, from trade policy to investment policy, has to be structured around green energy. And this is what we call at SDPI all in green and green in all approach that we have to take. And this is where all of your policies are guiding towards green. So this business as usual, that's separating non-green investments from the green investments, a green policy from the non-green investment policy, a green trade policy from the non-green trade policy, that has to go. And this business as usual won't work. And really, I don't think this is now any time left or any need left for showing the evidence. I mean, this is now a stylized fact that the future is green, and it's not longer future, it's 3 to 5 years maximum from now. You will have everything running on green, from your transportation to your capacity to integrate in global value chains. That will be conditioned on green. So that is the message number 2. I think the 3 messages then again that it's all actors' contributions that will lead your green energy transition. from the policymakers, from the parliamentarians, from the regulators, all have to work together for this green transition. And really, when Dr. Khalid or somebody else was saying that the longer term views, I think really we are not left with any longer term views. We need a big push on green energy shift. We are already late. And unfortunately, in the 7 decades, we have always been late and missing the many trains. We missed industrialization train, we missed agriculture, greening the agriculture train. I don't think that we should take this chance to missing this green energy train, and we should go beyond that. What are our emissions? What are the contributions to our emissions? We should now take it as an economic question more than the environmental question. And for this, I think I have 3 key actors. Obed, can you hear me clearly? I see you a bit worrying face, so I thought I should ask
No,
you.
no, no, no. You're perfectly audible. Yeah.
Okay,
please.
great. Thank you. Thank you. I think 3 key actors that I think will shape and will have to shape actually this transition, a big push towards green energy. Is number one is the governments, and both federal and provincial governments. A very clear policy framework for green energy transition with very specific key performance indicators within an action plan for green financing. Because there is one thing very clear, that there will be no international green financing coming for your green energy transition. It has to come from within the sector. So in this way, greening the energy is actually greening your financial markets. So if you cannot green your financial markets, you cannot green your energy, because it will be ultimately a question of finance. And this is where the first actor, then the second actor comes the State Bank of Pakistan as a custodian of financial market policies, as a regulator of the banking sector. The first thing that I think as State Bank of Pakistan needs to do, and this is very encouraging, State Bank coming very forward on this green energy transition. They are working on taxonomy. Excuse me. They have to sort of integrate these climate risks into their monetary policy. Right now, what they are doing is in their financial market policy or financial policy, there is some integration in terms of green taxonomy and other things. But I think still there is a bigger gap when it comes to monetary policy and this green financing. And I think they have to integrate within their monetary policy frameworks and overall supervisory activities that needs to be integrated. Like also many of the speakers already said that they have worked on green bonds and the skooks. And I think this is nothing that it's sort of inventing the new wheel. Many banks are doing it. Bank of England is doing it. European banks are doing, even in our neighborhoods, Indian banks are doing it. Indian Central Bank is doing. So I think there is a lot to learn, and easy to learn and quick to learn that can be sort of integrated into the existing frameworks of sort of the central bank, State Bank of Pakistan. And I think this is really important to mention here, that NABAF's role will be very important here. For example, if you have a sort of, I mean, Bank of England and European banks are running to promote green bonds and skook green bond purchase programs. What can we learn from those green bond or skook? We can extend it to scope purchase programs, is to transit to low carbon economy, the capacity building of its own policies, and in terms of the banking sectors for the policy. And NABAF has a very critical role here. I mean, I would strongly urge that they need to develop a sort of short course or module on this green financing. And I think it's better to do sooner than later. And SDPI, as we have been continually engaging with State Bank of Pakistan and the NABAF, it's very encouraging to see they're coming, and SDPI remains committed to assist in developing these short courses, delivering these short courses in very close collaboration with. And finally, I think that State Bank of Pakistan has to do is there are now global practices, sort of a step where central banks are establishing climate risk management forums for capacity buildings. They are developing how to manage climate risks. They are developing capacity for SMEs. They are developing capacities for banking sectors. So there can be a forum that NIBAF can lead, or the central bank can lead, or any regional offices of central bank can lead. I always say that these regional offices of State Bank of Pakistan has to act as a mini State Bank of Pakistan's. They should not be just a place of accountings. They have to take a leading role as a thought leader, sort of deepening from Karachi to every region as a mini State Bank of Pakistan. And this is they can establish these forums, sort of building capacity buildings. And this brings me to the last stakeholder, the key actor, and I'm just closing in 2 minutes maximum. The commercial banks, I see many people around there, and from Obed's introduction remarks as well, that we have sort of good representation from commercial banks. So I have quick 3 messages for commercial banks. Number one, literally it's no more a state bank's problem or energy problem, it's your existence problem. You commercial banks, those who are not sort of enriching them with the capacity on innovative tools, instruments, will be left uncompetitive going 3 to 5 years. So you have to lead this cause instead of looking towards State Bank of Pakistan. Let's create a demand from the banking sector to push State Bank of Pakistan to sort of speed up the work that it is doing. It's already doing good work, but we need to be the champion instead of waiting, and lead this cause. I was just reading a number that in 2024, according to Bloomberg, India's commercial banking sector has given a sort of commitment to the government, which really amounts to US dollar 386 billion for green investments coming from the banking sector. These were the commitments that came to the Ministry of Green Energy in India from the commercial banking sector. So they are leading there. They are not looking towards RBI, Reserve Bank of India. And this is where we see. And this is about your own business as well. I'm being very honest in my comments. Its contribution to economy, its contribution to the development of the country, but at the same time, it is about your business as well. If you don't do, will be left uncompetitive. So demand a very clear framework, State Bank of Pakistan, set your credit lines very, very clearly, and finally build a very integrate your cost benefit analysis with green energy investments into your simulation and financial models, and invest in your training programs.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sajid.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
I'm
so
done.
much, Dr. Sajid, for extremely useful interventions. I believe with this, we can move more towards the consultative discussion format. We do have the commercial banks, but just before going to that, we have 3 generators here. We have Noman Saab, we have Tanveer Mirza Saab, we have Irfan Saab here as well. So perhaps again, initially looking at the perspective of when we talk about the role of renewable energy generation, where do we see the role of financing institutions in enabling this transition, especially, I mean, fully understanding that definitely, especially the first thing that we really need to look into is that the existing generation facilities, what challenges are they facing? But at the same time, I'll initially come to Tanveer Mirza Saab from UEP, and then perhaps to talk a bit on both. But later coming on to Irfan Saab, sir, will also be requesting that when we talk about this decentralized renewable energy generation, where does the financing institutions, the commercial banks, where do they perhaps come in as well? So, but firstly, let me come to Tanveer Mirza Saab. He has, I mean, one of the leading renewable energy experts, and again, one of the very close partners of SDPI. So, sir, also based on the discussion that we actually had, uh, I mean, what should be perhaps the role of not just the commercial financing institutions, but perhaps where can State Bank of Pakistan strengthen its mechanisms? And how do you actually see this transition happening? So with this, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ubaid. First of all, it's always been an honor to be on the platform through SDPI. And my hands all to you, because you are doing a real professional obligation towards all the society, that you are bringing the thought process from all the stakeholders towards the green and renewable energy. Thank you very much, first of all. My name is Tanveer Mirza, and I am in the RE sector since more than 2 decades, I can say now. So what I thought is Ubaid, just give me an liberty. Is it possible? Do we have some international
No,
clients?
Dr. Christoph is gone. तो उर्दू में
Okay.
हम बात कर सकते
Okay,
हैं. We can
thank you very much. Because I just wanted to make more of myself as an expressive, actually. That's why I wanted to use the Urdu language. So don't mind about that. मेरा ख्याल है कि ना हमने बहुत सारी बातें की हैं रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के ओवरऑल सेक्टर के ऊपर, लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है कि ना इसके अंदर एक बहुत जो इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि हमें ऑन ग्राउंड रियलिटी जो इस वक्त पावर सेक्टर की हैं उसको देखना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जब तक हम ऑन ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ को नहीं देखेंगे, हम इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से फोकस नहीं कर सकते, हम फ्यूचर ग्रोथ के हवाले से जो है प्लान नहीं कर सकते, और हम नहीं देख सकते कि हमने जो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट्स यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं कि हमने किस एरिया में कैसे मूव करना है। दूसरी एक और जो इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है ऑन ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ के अंदर, जो सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि हमें अपना एनर्जी मिक्स को देखना पड़ेगा। इस वक्त हमारे पास इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी मोर देन 45,000 मेगावाट की है, जबकि हमारे पास जो कंजम्पशन होती है पाकिस्तान में वो 2 एरियाज़ में आ जाती है, एक समर सीज़न होता है और एक विंटर सीज़न होता है। समर सीज़न के किसी भी एक दिन की जो पीक कंजम्पशन है वो 25 to 26,000 मेगावाट की होती है, जबकि विंटर में वो ड्रॉप होके 9,000 या 10,000 पे आ जाती है। अब देखने की बात जो होती है वो ये है कि 46,000 या 45,000 का तो इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी है, समर के अंदर हमारे पास 25-26,000 होती है, विंटर में 9-10 हज़ार रह जाती है। तो ये गैप क्यों है, इसको एनालाइज करना पड़ेगा। इससे जो अपेरेंटली नज़र आता है कि हमारा ये जो कंजम्पशन है ये बेसिकली कंज्यूमर बेस्ड है, ये इंडस्ट्रियल और कमर्शियल नहीं है, और अगर ये है तो बहुत कम है, क्योंकि अगर इंडस्ट्रियल और कमर्शियल हो तो ये एटलीस्ट इसका पहिया रेगुलर 24 आवर्स के ऊपर चल रहा होगा, तो ये इतना बड़ा गैप नहीं आएगा। तो हमें फोकस करना पड़ेगा कि आखिर को ये हम इसको इंडस्ट्रियल के साथ कैसे लेके आ सकते। इसके अंदर एक और जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर्स इस वक्त हैं पाकिस्तान में, गवर्नमेंट से लेके प्राइवेट से लेके सेमी प्राइवेट से लेके, उनको इंटीग्रेट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर वो इंटीग्रेट नहीं होंगे तो ये पॉलिसीज़ डिफरेंट हो जाएंगी। अभी डॉक्टर खालिद साहब ने फरमाया था कि हमारे कैपेसिटी चार्जेस हैं कोल के, न्यूक्लियर के, और फलाना फलाना फलाना। अब आप मुझे ये बताइए कि जब आपके पास ऑलरेडी 45,000 प्लस मेगावाट की कैपेसिटी है, तो हम सोलर के 4-5 हज़ार मेगावाट और पावर प्लांट्स क्यों लेके आ रहे हैं? ये एक डायलेमा है ना। इसका मतलब इंटीग्रेशन नहीं है लोकल मार्केट के साथ या ग्रिड के साथ। फिर ग्रिड में हमारी कैपेसिटी नहीं है। अब मैं ये जो इन्वेस्टमेंट और फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट्स की बात कर रहा था कि इन्वेस्टमेंट क्या नए पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स पे लेके आनी है या ग्रिड की स्टेबिलिटी और ग्रिड की इम्प्रूवमेंट की तरफ लेके जानी है। फिर दूसरा एक और जो हमारी जो बहुत सारी डिस्कशंस में बात आ रही थी, हम मेनली जब रिन्यूएबल्स की बात करते हैं तो हमारे जहन में 2 से 3 ही सेक्टर्स आते हैं, विंड, सोलर, हाइड्रो। इशू ये है कि इस वक्त जब हम अपनी ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी को देखते हैं तो इस वक्त अभी जब ट्रम्प आया है तो वो कहता है यार ड्रिल ड्रिल एंड ड्रिल, मतलब उसने तो फॉसिल फ्यूल ही की तरफ जाना है। तो इसका मतलब ये है कि दूसरे लफ्ज़ों में पाकिस्तान में भी फॉसिल फ्यूल कोई एकदम से नापैद तो हो नहीं जाएगा, इसको भी कुछ डेकेड्स लगेंगे ख़त्म होने को, चाहे आप भले इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल्स ले आएँ कुछ और ले आएँ। क्योंकि हमारे पास अगर व्हीकल्स ही को देखें तो हमारे पास तो 1970 की गाड़ियां भी अभी तक की चल रही हैं, नई व्हीकल्स को तो छोड़ें। तो हमें कुछ और दूसरी ऑप्शंस जो ऑलरेडी पाकिस्तान में इंगेज हो चुकी हैं, जिनके ऊपर रिसर्च हो गई है, जो हमारी गवर्नमेंट की फाइल्स के अंदर हैं, हमें थोड़ा सा उनको भी एक्सप्लोर करना चाहिए। आप सोचेंगे मैं क्या बात कर रहा हूँ, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ बायोडीजल के ऊपर, मैं बात कर रहा हूं फ्यूल एथनॉल के ऊपर। फ्यूल एथनॉल जो शुगर केन इंडस्ट्री का एक बाय प्रोडक्ट है, इसके ऊपर ऑल्टरनेट एनर्जी डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड जो पहले था और आजकल अब पीपीआई बन गया है, उसके रिकॉर्ड्स में है कि 20-80 के रेशो के ऊपर 80% नॉर्मल पेट्रोल और 20% फ्यूल एथनॉल के साथ आप गाड़ी चला सकते हैं। इसी तरह बायोडीजल में 80% ऑफ डीजल और 20% ऑफ बायोडीजल को मिक्स करें तो आपकी गाड़ी चलती है। उस जमाने में 2OD गाड़ी होती थी टोयोटा की, 2006-7 में वो चली है। हमें इन इन टेक्नोलॉजीज के ऊपर भी देखना पड़ेगा कि यहाँ पे क्या हमारे पास ऐसे इंडिजिनियस रिसोर्सेज अगर हैं तो क्या ये जो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट हैं क्या उन कंपनीज को प्रमोट कर सकते हैं, क्या उनको सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं जो ये बायोडीजल फ्यूल एथनॉल की तरफ जाएं। फिर पॉलिसी की तरफ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क तो हमारा इतना डिस्टर्ब हुआ है कि मुझे तो समझ नहीं आती कि क्या है। लेट्स फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मैं अभी आज विंड पावर सेक्टर की बात करूं तो आप कैसे कोई चीज़ प्लान करोगे जबकि विंड पावर सेक्टर जो हम रिन्यूएबल्स की यहाँ पे बात करें उस पर कर्टेलमेंट्स अभी भी होती हैं, आज के दिन भी हो रही हैं। तो अब जहाँ रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पे कर्टेलमेंट्स हो रही हैं तो इसका मतलब गवर्नमेंट की फ्रेम ऑफ माइंड जो है वो हमारे इस जगह पे जहाँ पे हम बैठ के सोच रहे हैं उससे डिफरेंट है। तो ये पॉलिसीज़ को हमें लेके चलना पड़ेगा कि ये क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है, क्योंकि अगर रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी में कर्टेलमेंट होगी तो क्या होगा। हमने नेगोशिएशंस की बात की कि हम पावर डेवलपर्स जो हैं उनके साथ रीनेगोशिएट कर रहे हैं, हम बहुत सारी चीज़ें कर, लेकिन हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि उसका इम्पैक्ट क्या आ रहा है। आई थिंक यूल बी सरप्राइज टू नो कि ये जितनी भी इस वक्त पावर सेक्टर के अंदर जो रीनेगोशिएशंस हो रही हैं और सारा कुछ हो रहा है, इसका टैरिफ के ऊपर हार्डली लेस देन 2 रुपीज़ का इफेक्ट। अगर ये 2 रुपए के इफेक्ट के लिए हमने इतना बड़ा क्योस फैला दिया और जिसकी वजह से हुआ ये कि हमारे जो इन्वेस्टर कॉन्फिडेंस ही शेक हो गया। हम तो पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त इन्वेस्टमेंट आई नहीं रही। क्यों नहीं आ रही? इसलिए कि लोकल क्या तो इंटरनेशनल सारे इन्वेस्टर्स शेक हो गए, क्योंकि हो क्या रहा है कि जो दुनिया के बड़े बड़े लेंडर्स थे वही ये पाकिस्तान में भी लैंडिंग वही कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो चाइना की साइड से कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो इंटरनेशनल आईएफसी है, एडीबी है, वगैरह वगैरह, वो सारे के सारे डिस्टर्ब हो गया। तो इसलिए हमें बड़ा कंसिस्टेंटली और बड़ा विजिलेंट होके और बड़ा क्लोजली मॉनिटर करके ये देखना पड़ेगा कि हमारी प्रायोरिटीज़ कैसी हैं, क्या है, ऑन ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ के साथ उनको मैच करना पड़ेगा। और मेरा ख्याल है कि ना अब हमें ऑनेस्टली स्पीकिंग हमें अपने आप से ज़्यादा बढ़ के सोचना पड़ेगा। हमें वाकई मुल्क के लिए सोचना चाहिए, हमें मुल्क की पॉलिसीज़ के लिए सोचना चाहिए, हमें आम आदमी के लिए सोचना चाहिए। अब देखिए ना, अब हम यहाँ पे ग्रीन एनर्जी की बात करते हैं। अब पाकिस्तान का टोटल कंट्रीब्यूशन दुनिया के अंदर जो है कार्बन एमिशंस के लिए वो 1 to 2% है। तो इसका मतलब हम कोई बहुत बड़े कंट्रीब्यूटर नहीं है। बट ऑन द अदर साइड वी आर एट द टॉप 3 और 5 कंट्रीज जो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की वजह से इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं। अब क्या ये सारी की सारी चीजें फिल्टर डाउन होती हैं हमारे एक आम आदमी को तो पता ही नहीं है कि ग्लोबल वार्मिंग होती क्या है, वो हो क्या रहा है। हमें तो उसको भी एजुकेट करना पड़ेगा, हमें इन सारी चीज़ों को देखना पड़ेगा कि हमने कैसे लेके चलना है, क्या करना है। हमें इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर को जब तक कि हम डेवलप नहीं करेंगे और इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर के अंदर हम भले उसको कैप्टिव पावर रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी से दे दें, सोलर से दे दें, लेकिन इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर इज द ग्रोथ, क्योंकि अदरवाइज ये कोई बहुत जितनी भी हम बातें कर लें उसको
yes,
फायदा नहीं
exactly.
होगा। Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanveer Saab. Well noted point. But especially I'll be taking 2 key points. That is again the role of how the whole financing institutions can actually address the challenges which Tanveer Saab has actually highlighted how different concessional or de-risking mechanisms can actually support the challenges which highlighted. So let me come to Irfan Ahmed Saab, and then I'll be coming to Naman Saab as well. So Irfan Saab, again, talking initially about perhaps going other than the utility scale projects, how can these financing institutions perhaps talking about the commercial banks, regulators, state bank, how they can sort of, and again, being the player who has been in the market, how do you see is their very significant role? Where does that comes in? So yeah, over to you. Thank you.
तो हबीब जालिब के एक शेर से मैं स्टार्ट करूंगा। मैंने भी सुनी है आपकी तकदीर मौलाना, मगर बदली नहीं अब तक मेरी तकदीर मौलाना। हाँ, वो हमने शहबाज शरीफ साहब के लिए छोड़ दी। बात यह है कि 2003 से मैं रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी से वाबस्ता हूँ, और जब आरी पॉलिसी 2006 बन रही थी तो इसी तरह की तकरीरें जैसे आज हुई हैं हो रही थी। सस्टेनेबिलिटी, अफोर्डेबिलिटी, कैसे इन्वेस्टर्स को इंसेंटिवाइज करना है, कैसे करना, वो पॉलिसी की शेप में आपके सामने आ गई। जो 7 साल का प्रोग्राम था आरी पॉलिसी 2006 का, वो अभी तक पूरा नहीं, वी आर नॉट इवन क्लोज टू दैट। ठीक है, अब बेसिक फिगर्स आप देखें, SIFC के फिगर्स मैं आपको दे देता हूँ कि हमारी 2900 गीगावाट का सोलर पोटेंशियल है। हाँ? 1 गीगावाट से भी कम यूटिलिटी स्केल प्रोजेक्ट लगे हुए हैं। 400 गीगावाट का विंड पोटेंशियल है और 1845 मेगावाट के 36 प्रोजेक्ट्स लगे हुए हैं। अब इसमें 800 मेगावाट की कर्टेलमेंट हो रही है। दिस इज ऑफिशियल। मैंने कहा जी हमने वो न्यूक्लियर लगा लिए हैं और अब हमें लोड ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए आप लोगों से, कर्टेलमेंट। ये ऑफिशियली NTDC ने हमें बताया 2023 के शुरू में, और उसके हिसाब से कर्टेलमेंट हो रही है। और जैसे हमारे तनवीर साहब ने कहा, आज भी हो रही है। इस महीने मतलब 20 से ज़्यादा कर्टेलमेंट्स हो चुकी हैं। ठीक है, अब हम यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं ग्रीन एनर्जी की, ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स की। आप करना क्या चाहते हैं? आप वही बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट लाके लगाना चाहते हैं ताकि कर्टेल हो। पिछले साल 40 अरब रुपए का सिर्फ विंड पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स का NPMV दिया है। किसने दिया है? कंज्यूमर्स ने। क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट कहती है हमने दिया, वो तो कुछ दे नहीं सकती, वो तो प्रोड्यूस ही कुछ नहीं करते, दे आर नॉन प्रोडक्टिव पीपल। कंज्यूमर्स आर पेइंग दैट। 40 बिलियन रुपीज एक साल में NPMV, नॉन प्रोजेक्ट मिस वॉल्यूम कॉम्पेंसेशन टू विंड प्रोजेक्ट्स के आपसे हमने एनर्जी नहीं ली। आप अभी भी बात कर रहे हैं कि जी वो बड़े बड़े इन्वेस्टर लाओ, $1 मिलियन के प्रोजेक्ट करो, जबकि आपके पास सरप्लस एनर्जी है। आपने EPA साइन किए हुए हैं 30-30 साल के, 40-40 साल के। न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट 1100 मेगावाट का $5 अरब कॉस्ट किया उसने, और आप उससे 1100 की जगह 800 ले रहे हैं। पिछले साल जो प्लांट फैक्टर रहा है K2 का, उसको आप देखें 70% से ऊपर होता नहीं है वो। फिर आप कहते हैं कि जी हमने और प्रोजेक्ट्स लगाने। आपका इशू कहाँ है? इशू है आपके ग्रिड में, आपकी ट्रांसमिशन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में। 7% से ज़्यादा रिन्यूएबल अगर इन फीड हो जाए हमारे नेटवर्क में NTDC के, तो अनस्टेबल हो जाता है। 2023 जनवरी 2023 में पाकिस्तान जो था 500 मेगावाट रिन्यूएबल इन फीड आ गई NTDC के नेटवर्क में विंड की, तो नेटवर्क ट्रिप हो गया, आधा पाकिस्तान काला हो गया। ये नेपरा ने अपनी रिपोर्ट में लिखा है, जो छप गई। और उसको देखते हुए नेपरा की रिपोर्ट को 2 इन्वेस्टर्स जो मेरे साथ इन टच थे विंड पावर प्रोजेक्ट लगाने में, वो भाग गया। उन्होंने कहा एक ऐसा नेटवर्क है भाई 500 मेगावाट अगर अंदर आ जाए तो
नहीं, इरफान
network-
साहब, fully understanding the
हाँ।
challenges जो हैं, but
अभी वे कमिंग टू द सॉल्यूशन।
जी,
तो मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि आप लोग ये बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स की तरफ ना सोचें, छोटे स्मॉल आरई की तरफ आएं, क्योंकि हमारा मसला अपने इन्वेस्टर्स का है। हमारा लोकल इन्वेस्टर जो है, चाइना कहता है जी प्राइवेट सेक्टर में हम आपको 80% लोन देंगे, आप 20% इक्विटी लेके आए। हमारा इन्वेस्टर पहले तो पाकिस्तान में इन्वेस्ट ही नहीं कर रहा, जो हमारा लोकल है वो तो बाहर के मुल्कों में कर रहा, और अगर कर भी रहा है तो 2% से ज़्यादा इक्विटी रेज नहीं कर सकता। ठीक है, हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स जो हैं जिनसे मेरी बात होती रहती है, वो कहते हैं कि जूइश इकोनॉमी है एंड कैपिटल इज अदर्स पीपल्स मनी। उनका कहना यह है कि इक्विटी इज ऑल्सो कैपिटल, इट शुड ऑल्सो बी अदर्स पीपल्स मनी। ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वो क्वाजी इक्विटी डालते हैं। तो आप ये बड़े प्रोजेक्ट में कोई आपको मिलेगा ही नहीं। आपको चाहिए आरई, स्मॉल स्केल आरई, जिसमें ना आपको एनटीडीसी चाहिए, ना डिस्कोस चाहिए, ना नेपरा चाहिए, ना गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज चाहिए, ना एसओई चाहिए। गो फॉर मिनी ग्रिड्स, स्मॉल आरई। जर्मनी की 90 गीगावाट का पीवी सोलर का की इंस्टॉलेशन है इस वक्त, जिसमें 45 गीगावाट इज नेट मीटर्ड सोलर इंस्टॉलेशन, पीवी सोलर इंस्टॉलेशन, रूफटॉप सोलर इंस्टॉलेशन। और 45 गीगावाट हमारी टोटल कैपेसिटी है, और फर्म कैपेसिटी तो हमारी लेस देन 30 गीगावाट्स है। एंड जर्मनी इज गोइंग फॉर मिनी ग्रिड्स, कम्युनिटी ग्रिड्स, माइक्रो ग्रिड, सोलर को यूटिलाइज करने के लिए। उनकी सोलर इंसोलेशन जो है हमसे आधी है, हमारी 2000 से ऊपर है पर स्क्वायर मीटर पर एनम, 2000 किलोवाट आवर्स। उनकी 1200-1300 है, और वो इस तरफ जा रहे हैं। तो वाई डोंट वी थिंक अबाउट दैट? अगर हम स्मॉल स्केल आरई पे जाएंगे तो हमारे लोकल इन्वेस्टर्स भी इन्वेस्ट कर सकेंगे। एंड यू नो दिस इज नॉट कोई मैं हवा में बात कर रहा हूँ, वी हैव डन इट, दुनिया ने किया हुआ है। अब मेरे पास एक छोटी सी प्रेजेंटेशन थी, और वो उसको करने के लिए टू डू दैट स्मॉल आरई, एक सबसे सिंपल सी चीज़ है कि हम सोलर पैनल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जो है उसको एज ए कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री स्टार्ट करें। ठीक है, वी डिड दिस विद रिजेक्ट सेल्स। यहाँ जॉबलेस लोगों को हमने ट्रेन किया, 2 हफ्ते में लोग ट्रेन होते हैं सोलर पैनल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के। लोकल आप इक्विपमेंट ले लें, हमने विंडो ग्लास लिया, हमने विंडो एल्युमिनियम के फ्रेम्स लिए, उसमें सोलर चिपका दिया पीछे। एंड दैट those panels I was using, my self-made panels from 2009 till 2022। जब मैंने कहा ये छोटे हैं, अब अभी भी मेरे पास पड़े, they're still working, locally
जी,
made।
जी,
तो why don't we go for that?
yeah,
उसका we have details about that, I think we can share those with you। हमने सिंध एनर्जी डिपार्टमेंट के साथ शेयर किए हैं ये डिटेल्स, एंड दे आर सीरियसली वर्किंग ऑन दिस कि हम जाएं और अपने रूरल एरियाज में जहां बिजली है ही नहीं, हमारे पास 15,000 विलेजेस सिंध के हैं जहां बिजली नहीं है, वहां जाके ये काम
इरफान साहब, more towards again the banking sector के क्वेश्चन।
मैं तो बैंकिंग सेक्टर को, स्मॉल आरई को फाइनेंस करने के लिए बैंक्स तैयार हैं।
ओके,
ठीक है, हमारे इरफान मिर्ज़ा साहब, तनवीर मिर्ज़ा साहब के छोटे भाई हैं, उन्होंने अराउंड 2010 एक स्टडी की थी GIZ के साथ, हाउ टू फाइनेंस these small scale projects using local banks, and that was a very successful study, and he was able to prove that this is possible in Pakistan just like Grameen Bank। so we should go for that। हम इतने बड़ी बड़ी चीजें ना सोचे, जरा छोटी तरफ भी आ जाए, हम फोकस लूज कर जाते हैं अपना। ठीक है, और इससे हमारा सबसे बड़ा जो मसला हल होगा वो ये है कि जॉब क्रिएशन होगी, और वो लोग जो सोलर पैनल्स बनाएंगे वो उनको मेंटेन भी करके रखेंगे। देखें, अगर गांव में एक दूध वाला हो सकता है, एक मोची हो सकता है, तो सोलर पैनल मेकर क्यों नहीं हो सकता? और ये दूसरी दुनिया में कोई 15-20 कंट्रीज में ये बड़ा सक्सेसफुल चल रहा है सिलसिला, ये कोई नया नहीं है, इट इज ऑलमोस्ट 20 years old, लोग कर रहे हैं इस तरह। तो वी शुड स्टार्ट फ्रॉम दैट। ये एक छोटा सा पार्ट है, आप बाकी चीजें भी करें अगर आप चाहते हैं कि बड़े बड़े हम $1 million के काम करें और हमारा लॉस करवाएं, ये छोटा सा काम भी करें।
थैंक यू सो मच
थैंक यू।
इरफान साहब। सो आई बिलीव जो पॉइंट है हमारे पास, the way the banks can actually support जो solar PV rush को हम लोग observe करें, that's again very important। But just before coming to Noman साहब, let's sort of take a bit of a perspective from the financing institutions, your banks sitting here. We do have the National Bank of Pakistan here, we do have the Sindh Bank here, we do have Mizan Bank sitting over here, and other, again, commercial financing institutions. So if I can request them if they would sort of like to uh, highlight any point, and perhaps initially starting from either Sindh Bank, the colleagues, we do have Miss Sadia Bukhari, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you can again, I mean, the discussion that we actually have. So, I mean, when we talk about the commercial banks, there are two, again, perspectives. One is, once if we Pakistan thinks of going towards different structured financing based mechanisms, concessional financing scheme, that's one role where the banks would have to eventually come in. And secondly, I believe the point which Irfan Saab mentioned, that we're already going through a solar rush, and concessional financing schemes from the banks to support this transition could again be very critical for Pakistan. So perhaps, ma'am, if you have any particular points that you would like to sort of respond to the discussions that have happened, or yeah, please. Thank you.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. Sadia Bukhari from Sindh Bank. I am working as head risk over there and also chief green banking manager. Regarding Sindh Bank, I would like to introduce about our solar energy solution that is very much customized with the customer needs. We are providing corporate solutions, individual solutions, and also in terms of SMEs, and also dealing with SMADA about awareness sessions related to trainings given to the small and medium enterprises about the challenges they are going to face in after implementation of CBAM, and how to cope up with all these uh, you can say more complex situation going to be faced by the Pakistan, where everybody is having the thought process there that we are only 1% emitter and contributing only 1 or 2% CO2 emissions in overall this climate change. So the main idea which would be focused right now is that if Pakistan should work over the adaptive strategies rather than the mitigation strategies. We are more vulnerable due to floods, due to climate change. Our small and medium enterprises are facing so much losses, like we have already seen in 2022 floods. In 2019 crisis, Pakistan was highly affected due to low infrastructural reforms in information and technology. So right now, Sindh Bank is working over providing AI solutions to the farmers in implementation of drip technology, working over their water conservation related problems, because our major focus is interior Sindh and we are agrarian country where we are working over more food supply chain resilience, which get affected so much in all these crises. Sindh Bank in its own self, working over its own impact reduction. We are working over digitization. There are so many, you can say, technological advancements in paper usage reduction and providing more convenient solutions to our borrowers, giving them more palm technology so they can get their accounts available with them. They are having different advances products available with them. Hari card product launch for the farmers, and the solar solution. We have Azadi loan for the inclusion of women entrepreneurs, which is subsidized loan. We worked over Kohart Cement's energy solution, provided them 450 megawatt related solution in solar related area. So these are some of the very smallest steps in reducing this impact, which the small and medium enterprises and corporate sector already facing. Yeah, one of my colleagues talked about the coal power plants. We have investments in that segments as well, but like Angro coal power plant is the example which has upgraded its technology, which must also be worked over related to Thar coal power plant and other segments, which will be the more contributor for Pakistan. While we are working towards the green economy, we should not lose our strength in the coal sector. Although CBAM is going to be implemented from 2026, which is another concern for us for European exports, but we must give it some of the balanced strategy, move towards the green economy, but not like in very hurry. And if there will be some smaller steps and awareness and skill building, and also the giving more trainings and more discussions, so the small segment, which is already very much affected due to trade barriers and so much competition in exports, shouldn't get lose its space in the European and top level economy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Sadia. No, well noted points. Again, fully understanding that even as we talk of today, coal does has that space in the energy mix of Pakistan. But I believe again, since what Dr. Christoph mentioned, what Dr. Khalid mentioned, that eventually the export compliances, they're becoming so strong that we eventually would have to, and especially the point again, the point we're sort of trying to raise is that, I mean, you really need to understand that on one hand, you have that solar rush due to which the grid demand is constantly decreasing, and that's actually one of the very key points that it is leading to is the decrease in the utilization of any of the existing utility scale based projects. So perhaps not again in a short term, but eventually in a long term, we actually have to decide how do we actually get rid of the uh, existing unused capacity that we actually have. So, but again, thank you so much for highlighting all the good initiatives around solar that they have. Adaptive strategies are definitely one of the key in intervention areas of the commercial banks in Pakistan. So again, if I can actually request, if we do have colleagues from Nizam Bank, we do have colleagues from National Bank, if they would like to sort of add on to anything at this point, yeah, before we go forward. Sure. No. Then perhaps we just actually wanted to hear one of the commercial banks just to get a perspective of what the banks are doing. So perhaps, Noman Saab, if you would like to sort of touch upon any of the points that you would like to sort of highlight, especially when we're talking about the role of financing institutions as well. Yeah.
Hello, thank you very much, Ubaid and SDPI, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this very important topic. I am associated with the renewable energy sector for the last 1 decade or so, and I have what my experience actually has been in this since the very beginning, and is that in the beginning when we started off with this in this sector, the spirits were very high, and it appeared that the government is very supportive, and renewables are really the future of this country. But after passing through this 1 decade, it is very unfortunate that today we think that these wind power plants actually are no more required, and they are actually a burden on the NTDC system. This is what actually the NTDC now says. And this has severely discouraged all the investors, okay, the local and as well as the foreigners. And actually, the policies that government is making, it appears that they are not in sync with the ground realities. The policies are actually being made not to address the long-term solutions or the long-term problems of this country. They are actually being made to do the firefighting. And even today, we are just involved in the firefighting. Uh, we are, as a result of this firefighting exercise, the confidence of the investors is being shaken. And it has, already some of the big investors in the energy sector, they have decided to pull out from this sector, which is very unfortunate, and actually it sets the pace. And whatever actually we are talking today here, these are very good actually things. If we look at all these ideas, and the people are actually giving their opinions and ideas with full conviction, I think. But are they implementable in this current scenario? We have to just look at all this. That actually these, to me, this does not seem to be actually implementable under the conditions, under the prevailing conditions. And first of all, we have to find out solutions to these very basic problems today that our industry, our economy is actually facing. This is the economical problems. These are not technical or banking problems. These are economical, mega economic problems, and these have to be resolved if we have to survive as a country. And but unfortunately, we see that at the people who are at the helm of the affairs, they are still engaged in just firefighting. They don't have a long-term policy, nor they have a will to make a policy. They just want to, जिसको कहते हैं डंग टपाओ कि आज का दिन गुजारो, कल देखेंगे कल क्या होता है. So actually, this is actually what is happening, and we actually saw the solutions actually which came from the very learned people was that the government should actually stop involving itself into this business, and then the CCTBCM was the solution to that. But we saw that after making very huge debates on this topic as well, the CTBCM, we are nowhere, because the fundamental issues in that CTBCM are not being resolved. And the problem that today we are facing is the capacity payment. This is what is said. But what actions the government is taking or the policymakers are taking, and what solutions do we have to resolve this capacity, the capacity charges issue? Rather, what I see, and we all see, that whatever the actions that are being taken, it is actually adding to the capacity charges issue. Rather than resolving it, we are making it compound. And that is the reason that people are not suing away from the grid, and they are trying to have their own system. Every house actually wants to have its own powerhouse, and every industry wants to have it. So this is actually going to defeat what the government is actually trying to do. It is actually trying to say that the capacity charges are the main culprit behind this. But actually, what they are doing is, it is adding to the capacity charges in itself, plus the big investors who actually can only afford to invest in this industry, they have shaken their confidence, and they are leaving the country. So unfortunately, this is not the solution actually to involve big financial institutions. We should actually now focus on, first of all, resolving the capacity charges, or this big problem that we have today, and then focus on the smaller scale levels, like the microgrids. The microgrid systems can come if we pull up, like for example, if the industry in Karachi, can be fed electricity, can be supplied electricity through the microgrids. Okay, if we want to resolve this problem of higher electricity charges, and for paying for other people's mistakes, because we are paying for the mistakes that we have not made. It has been made somewhere else, and now the whole nation has to pay for that. But Karachi is actually insulated from that, because Karachi actually does not get any of the electricity from those big thermal power stations. Karachi can have its own power sources, and all of the power source from for this city, which is a big industrial city, can come from renewables. But because we are part of this country, and we cannot cut off from the real problems, so actually, in my view, if we really want to resolve this problem, we should start from smaller grids. if we invest in the smaller grids in Karachi and support the renewables, the industry will flourish in this city, and the economy of the country will rise.
Very well noticed, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, Raman. Some extremely useful interventions. Yeah. So again, from this generation perspective, one point that is coming up is that the financing institutions, state bank, and they all have to play a very strong role in de-risking of the investments that, yeah, just sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum ji. I'm Naveen Ahmed from PFAN. So I just need to make two comments really. Firstly, Pakistan's problem is not really a liquidity problem. It's a de-risking problem. What do I mean by that? Pakistan mein jo commercial banks hain, if you look at their September 2024 numbers, the total deposits, cash deposits with the banking sector are at 34 trillion rupees. That's about $120 billion. और कंपेयर करें आप ADR के साथ, सो हिस्टोरिकली हमारा जो ADR रहा है वो 39-40% है. In the developed world, ADR typically banking sector का 70% होता है. So that 30% का जो delta है, that unlocks about $35 billion of funding. अगर आप उसी को इस्तेमाल कर लें. We don't need to get fancy. We don't have to talk about innovative. In my line of work, I hear the word innovative every 5 minutes. So we don't really need to care. What we need is a garden variety solution. और वो क्या है? Simple de-risking mechanisms such as guarantees. सबको समझ आती है, पूरे banking sector को समझ आती है. Give them first loss, partial risk guarantees. A lot of these projects will start getting finance, and not just climate finance. I'm talking about all kinds of verticals outside of energy as well. तो ये दो तीन चीज़ें हैं. I mean, आप ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स की बात कर रहे हैं या सस्टेनेबिलिटी लिंक बॉन्ड्स की बात करें, कैपिटल मार्केट में कैपिटल कितना है जिसको आप अनलॉक करेंगे? You need to unlock the capital that is lying in the banking sector right now. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, perfect. That was also the point I was sort of trying to bring the discussion into, that de-risking, especially when we look at this angle, is going to be extremely important. And if I can also sort of request Sadia to talk a bit about de-risking as well. Sadia Sati is again one of the researchers at SJP. And I fully understand, Sadia, you also look at the gender angle, but firstly talking about the de-risking point that has been made here, and then we can take the discussion further. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think इतने ज़्यादा फाइनेंशियल टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट्स के सामने बैठ के डी रिस्किंग पे बात करना थोड़ा सा मेरे लिए मुश्किल हो जाएगा. बट कमिंग टू द पॉइंट, लाइक वी आर डिस्कसिंग द ग्रोथ इन एनर्जी सेक्टर. So I will link this with the overall sustainable economy, overall sustainable development achievement of SDGs in Pakistan. Like if we talk about, we have missing the lens, gender lens here, because आप अगर देखें तो आपका पाकिस्तान में energy sector में खातून सिर्फ only 44% जो females हैं वो technical positions में हैं. जब हम इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ की बात कर रहे हैं, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की बात कर रहे हैं, तो लिविंग नो वन बिहाइंड, आई थिंक वी कैन नॉट लेफ्ट women behind, because if we talk about the solar panels, हम लोग SMEs की एग्जांपल दें, some of them I personally know जो कि रूफटॉप सोलर यूज करके दे आर रनिंग देयर स्मॉल बिजनेसेस. सो फाइनेंशियल जो इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं यहाँ पे हमारे साथ बैंक्स बैठे हैं, आई थिंक दे शुड डू अ जेंडर एनालिसिस जिसकी बेस पे दे शुड इंट्रोड्यूस अ फाइनेंशियल मैकेनिज्म, और कुछ टूल्स जो हैं जेंडर इंक्लूसिव होनी चाहिए. फॉर एग्जांपल, यू कैन कम अप विद द सब्सिडीज for women only, so they can promote their businesses or RE industry. इसके because when we are talking about the climate change जिससे हम सब गुजर रहे हैं, women are more vulnerable. Like अगर हम पाकिस्तान की बात करें, वहाँ पे भी हमारे पास recent example, हमारे floods में, कोविड में खातून थी, जितने भी मतलब मार्जिनलाइज सोसाइटीज, women who were more vulnerable. हमारे पास अभी भी इतनी लॉट ऐसी है इंजीनियर्स जो like 70% of female students that are engineers, but they don't have jobs in energy sector. So I think अगर हम इसको इस एंगल से भी लेके साथ चलें, that would be very good for the growth in RE sector. So I will leave from this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sadia. You you cannot take the gender out of the discussions, right? Yeah, that's really good. So, but yeah, before going to a special interventions from the government of Sindh colleagues we have, let me once again request Dr. Khalid to sort of shed any further interventions that he has, and then we'll move towards the final concluding discussion. So yeah, over to you, Dr. Khalid.
उबैद थैंक यू सो मच। मेरे ख्याल से मैंने काफ़ी बोल दिया दिन में, लेकिन इरफान साहब की बात से और तनवीर साहब की बात से आई गेस अगेन यू आर राइट कि हमें थोड़ा सा एक्सपेंशन की तरफ नहीं जाना। एटलीस्ट ये चीज़ पॉलिसी एरिना में क्लियर होनी चाहिए कि वी डू नॉट नीड कैपेसिटी एक्सपेंशन, but what we need is integration of installed capacity with industrial growth। किस तरह से, एक एग्जांपल मैं हमेशा देता रहा हूँ कि विंड कर्टेल होती है, उसके लिए कोई सोल्यूशन देखें, एंड इट शुड नॉट बी अ ग्रिड ओरिएंटेड सोल्यूशन, इट शुड बी अ डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड जनरेशन सोल्यूशन। फॉर एग्जांपल सेक्टर कपलिंग एक ऑप्शन है। यू कैन जनरेट हाइड्रोजन थ्रू अ स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स बिल्ट नियर द ठठा, जहाँ पे आप green hydrogen you can generate with that। for that आपका बैंकिंग सेक्टर भी सपोर्ट करेगा, लोकल कैपिटल भी अवेलेबल होगा इफ़ देर इज़ अ बैंकेबल फीजिबल प्रपोजल जो है वो जाता है, बट फॉर दैट वी नीड एन इंटीग्रेटेड प्लानिंग। दूसरी चीज़ जो सादिया ने हाईलाइट की, दैट मे बी जितना आपका सब्सिडी का बर्डन है, दैट सब्सिडी बर्डन इज़ अराउंड 90 बिलियन रुपी पर मंथ सिर्फ प्रोटेक्टेड कंज्यूमर्स का। अगर आप प्रोटेक्टेड कंज्यूमर से प्रोटेक्टेड का लेबल वापस ले लें, यू कैन जनरेट 90 बिलियन रुपी पर मंथ, और उनको टारगेटेड सब्सिडी दी जाए विद बेस्ट प्रोग्राम, वो कोई 48 बिलियन रुपी की बनेगी, विच मीन्स यू आर सेविंग अराउंड 43 बिलियन रुपी पर मंथ सिर्फ और सिर्फ इस टारगेटेड सब्सिडी के थ्रू, ब्लैंकेट सब्सिडी ख़त्म करके। किया क्या जा सकता है? Tailor made solution, tailor made solar panels for these protected consumers through concessional schemes, जैसे SBP की RE फाइनेंसिंग स्कीम थी बैक इन 2015-16 जब हमारा फाइनेंशियल क्रंच इतना नहीं था। स्टिल चूंकि पॉलिसी रेट्स नीचे आ रहे हैं, स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान इज रिकमेंडेड टू स्टार्ट सच काइंड ऑफ फाइनेंशियल schemes। obviously IMF की conditionalities हैं, but those conditionalities can be reasoned with। अगर IMF को ये नज़र आ रहा होगा कि सब्सिडी का बर्डन कम हो रहा होगा, they will definitely grant that सब्सिडी फ्रेमवर्क, तो उसमें भी थोड़ा सा इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो किया जा सकता है, बट स्टिल प्राइवेट सेक्टर शुड लीड। और इकोनॉमिक्स में हमेशा एक बड़ी अच्छी कोट है कि पीपल रिस्पॉन्ड टू इंसेंटिव, तो इंसेंटिव नजर आएगा तो लोग जो है वो काम भी कर रहे होंगे। बैक टू यू।
Yes, thank you so
मुझे
much,
अगर
Dr. Khalid. Yeah,
उबैद, मैं जस्ट
जी,
एक
please, but
कमेंट ऐड करना
go on.
चाहता हूँ, अगर इजाज़त दें तो। देखिए डॉक्टर साहब, थैंक यू मच, वेरी वेल सेड एक्चुअली। सबसे पहली बात यह है कि हमारे, जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा, कि हमें पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क्स के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा सिंसियरली तौर के ऊपर देखना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर हम ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ के साथ पॉलिसीज़ नहीं बनाएंगे तो वो उल्टा हमें नेगेटिव का इम्पैक्ट आएगा। लेट्स फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आप इजाज़त दें 2 मिनट की सिर्फ मैं बात करना चाहता हूँ इस सोलर इंडक्शन के हवाले से जो पाकिस्तान में रूफ टॉप के ऊपर आ रहा है। ये सारे का सारा जो है सेल्फ इनिशिएटिव बेसिस के ऊपर है, इसके अंदर कोई गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी नहीं है। सिर्फ एक पॉलिसी थी कि सोलर रूफटॉप आप लगाएं और सोलर के साथ वो करें। अब इशू क्या आ रहा है कि अब चूंकि पॉलिसी नहीं है, तो अब गवर्नमेंट को एक और मुसीबत ये पड़ी हुई है कि ये वो कंज्यूमर थे, इसकी वजह से 2 मेन इश्यूज आ गए हैं। एक तो ये इशू आ गया है कि ये वो वाले कंज्यूमर थे जो आपको पे बैक आपके टैरिफ का बहुत अच्छा दे देते थे पहला। अब ये इन लोगों के निकलने की वजह से वो आपको टैरिफ उस तरह से मिल नहीं रहा, या आपको पे बैक नहीं आ रहा, वो एक पाइल अप होता जा रहा है। दूसरा, इन लोगों के सोलर इंडक्शन की वजह से आपका वो जो पावर कंजम्पशन था वो बबल अप बनता जा रहा है आपके मेन ग्रिड के अंदर, क्योंकि अब वो कंज्यूम नहीं हो रहा। और ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट ये हो रहा है कि ये सोलर जितना कंज्यूम हो रहा है ये दिन के टाइम पे हो रहा है। रात को ये सारे के सारे लोग जो है वो ग्रिड के ऊपर आ जाते हैं और ये एक अजीब डिस्टेबलाइजेशन ऑफ द ग्रिड आ जाती है। तो ये चूंकि पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क नहीं है, अब मुझे डर ये लगा हुआ है कि ये अनस्टेबिलिटी इतनी है कि अगर गवर्नमेंट ने अपनी ये नेट मीटरिंग वाली पॉलिसी को विड्रॉ कर लिया तो फिर इनका क्या होगा, और फिर ये सोलर वाली चीज़ें कहाँ जाएंगी। तो इसलिए डॉक्टर साहब की बात बिल्कुल सही है। हमें ये भी ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कि पाकिस्तान इज दी सेवेंथ और नाउ एटलीस्ट एट बिगेस्ट कंट्री कि जिसके पास सिलिका के रिजर्व्स बहुत ज़्यादा है, एंड सिलिका इज़ द बेसिक रॉ मटेरियल ऑफ द सोलर पैनल। तो हम अगर ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ यहाँ पे सोलर पैनल की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करवा दें और इसके अंदर हमारे ये जो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट्स बैठे हुए हैं, क्या ये उस चीज़ को इवन कॉरपोरेट के लोग हों या प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टर हो, अगर ये उसको सपोर्ट करें तो हम सोलर पैनल यहाँ पे बना लें। मैंने एक दफ़ा गवर्नमेंट के साथ ये बात की थी कि सोलर पैनल का एक और जो सबसे बड़ा इशू हमें जो फेस होता है वो ये होता है कि इसकी एक इंटरनेशनल सर्टिफिकेशन होती है जो कहलाती है IEC 61215। ये क्या करती है कि ये उस सोलर पैनल की एमिशन को इंश्योर करती है कि कितने परसेंट एमिशन कर रहा होगा और उसकी लाइफ कितनी है। लेट्स फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम वो सर्टिफिकेशन नहीं करते और हम ये पाबंदी लगा देते हैं उस मैन्युफैक्चरर को कि ये लोकल ही यूज़ करें, तो और क्वालिटी कंट्रोल के साथ वो 10 से 12 साल चल जाए, तो क्या ये पॉसिबिलिटी है, क्या ये फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूट्स उस तरह के वो इंटरनेशनल सिनेरियोज को ना देखें और इस तरह की कोई टेलर मेड पॉलिसी ले आए और प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टर्स जो हैं ये इस तरह का सोलर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग शुरू कर दें ताकि एटलीस्ट लोकलाइज पाकिस्तान विद इन द बाउंड्री वॉल ऑफ पाकिस्तान इसको लेके आगे बढ़ा जा सके।
Yes.
थैंक यू।
Sure. Thank you so much, Tanveer sir. But before going to, we do have a Q&A session, so we'll take inputs from all of you before ending. But before that, let me sort of invite Abdul Nabi Memon Saab. He's currently working as the Director General of Planning and Development Department, Government of Sindh. Sir, thank you so much for being with us since the start. I mean, definitely, at the end of the day, it's all how sort of the messages are being communicated to you. Requesting your interventions, and after that we'll move towards the Q&A and then the final vote of thanks. So thank you so much for joining. Over to you.
थैंक यू। आप बेसिकली मैं नाउ रिसेंटली पोस्टेड एज अ डीजी। इससे पहले मेरी 2 पोस्टिंग है। आई वाज द चेयरमैन लीजिंग कंपनी ऑफ कोल। जैसे मैडम ने कहा एंग्रो को मैंने ही सारा लीज किया था। 5th लार्जेस्ट कोल इन पाकिस्तान जो है इन द वर्ल्ड वो पाकिस्तान में है। उसके बाद अनफॉर्चुनेट 4-5 साल पहले मुझे आई बिलोंग टू सिविल सर्विस, तो उसे डीजी एनर्जी भी किया गया, जो दोनों मेरी रिलेटेड पोस्टिंग ही नहीं थी। लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा अगर पाकिस्तान के हिस्ट्री में मैं नॉन टेक्निकल आदमी सबसे ज़्यादा मैं रहा हूँ वहाँ पे। तो जैसे इरफान साहब ने या तनवीर साहब ने कहा, काफ़ी बातें, सारे जो इश्यूज़ है वो गवर्नेंस इश्यूज़ है इस सारे सिस्टम एनर्जी में। और जैसे ये ग्राउंड लेवल पे काम हुआ ही नहीं है। बैंक है तो बैंकों को कार फाइनेंसिंग की 24 घंटे लगी पड़ी है। एक सोलर पैनल यूसी नाजिम 5000 से ज्यादा यूसीज है इन पाकिस्तान। तो यूसी लेवल पे सारा काम किया जाए ना, तो वहां से ही डेवलपमेंट है। ग्राउंड जैसे भाई ने कहा ग्राउंड रियलिटी से तो काम होता ही नहीं है। मैं प्लानिंग कमीशन में रहा हूँ, अब डिप्टी चेयरमैन कमीशन। जब प्लान वो बैठ के मैं इस्लामाबाद से बनाता हूँ स्कीम जाके, वो यहाँ गाड़ी खाता में क्या हो रहा है पता ही नहीं पड़ता। तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं। इस पे नेक्स्ट टाइम होगा तो मैं आपसे SBDI के तरफ से आपसे डिटेल में बात करूंगा। अभी जो मैं सारे कमेंट्स एड्रेस करता हूँ इरफान और तनवीर साहब और जब्बार मेमन साहब के। थैंक यू वेरी मच, सो नाइस ऑफ यू।
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your very useful interventions. Yeah, so I believe we just have a bit of a time, and we'll definitely take intervention. So, Irfan Saab, you wanted to add any point before we go to final vote of thanks, or any questions that any one of you have? We're happy to take comments before, yes, coming to Jabbar Saab.
जी, सबसे पहले तो मैं तनवीर साहब का शुक्रिया अदा करूंगा, उन्होंने ये सोलर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की बात यहाँ की लोकल, और वही हम कह रहे थे कि स्मॉल स्केल कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री लगाई जाए जो बड़ी पॉसिबल है। वी हैव डन दिस, ये बिल्कुल हो सकता है। और उसकी सर्टिफिकेशन की जहाँ तक बात है वो हम लोकल सर्टिफाई कर सकते हैं उसको। चाइना ने भी हमारे लोकल पैनल जो हमने बनाए थे उनको सर्टिफाई करने का कहा था, लेकिन हमने कहा हम खुद ही करेंगे सब कुछ जो करेंगे। हमारे यहाँ इतनी बड़ी टेक्निकल इंस्टीट्यूशन है, 250 यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं टेक्निकल, कुछ नहीं कर रही, उनसे भी काम करवाएं, तो वी कैन डू दैट। ठीक है, हमारे पास लैब्स भी हैं, वी कैन डू दैट।
यस, थैंक यू।
जब खालिद साहब ने, आई एम सॉरी, एक पॉइंट में आपको बताऊं कि ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन की बात हुई थी। पिछले 4 साल से जो WPPs कर्टेल हो रही है उनमें से 6 WPPs ये कोशिश कर रही हैं कि वो कर्टेलमेंट की बजाय, अभी पिछले साल जो हमने 40 अरब रुपए का लॉस किया है NPMV देकर, आप ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन बनाएं उससे। इलेक्ट्रोलाइजर्स जो थे, हमने सीमेंस से बात की, सीमेंस कहते ठीक है हम कर देंगे, लेकिन कोई एक प्लान तो बने। अब मसला ये है कि EPS साइन हुए हुए हैं 20-20 साल के, और गवर्नमेंट ने बिजली खरीदी हुई है। पॉलिसी चेंज करना जो है हुकूमत के लिए पॉसिबल ही नहीं है। EPS चेंज करना कोई पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है। तो नए आने वाले प्रोजेक्ट्स के लिए हम ये चीज़ रखें कि वो ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन।
Yes, Irfan sir, exactly. I think sector coupling का जो concept है, that is also being advocated from our end a number of times. जी, आप शफकत भाई, please, over to you.
traditional approach for the capacity expansion, we have to go with the capacity conservation. And if we look at today's agenda, clean energy transition, energy efficiency is recognized as the first fuel in clean energy transition. So why not we are talking about energy efficiency? That is a big potential in Pakistan. So let us also give a level playing field to the energy efficiency. And we can also mobilize the finance under this approach. And the second, nearly half of the country's population lacks the clean cooking. And globally, World Bank has initiated result-based finance for verified emission reduction. Successful projects and has been conducted in Bangladesh, where solar home installation and clean cooking projects, even the modern energy cooking service program, a global largest program, have initiated a cook to earn project. That is also means avenues within the clean energy transition where we can invest and mobilize the finance and even can hunt for the Pakistan. So these are the sectors where we can invest. Means we have already surplus energy. Just problem is the affordable and sustainable and clean modern energy. No doubt we have to substitute it with the renewable energy for making our electricity cheap. But there are also the other sectors.
Thank you so much. Last comment before we go to the final vote of thanks is from Sarah. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ubaid. Thank you for having me over here. Engineer Sarah Khan from Karachi, CEO Equinox Industrial Solutions, and I am a part of UN Department of Economics and Social Affairs. अच्छा, अभी हमने बहुत सारी बातें करी कि क्या हमें करना चाहिए और किस तरह करना चाहिए, लेकिन जो हो रहा है थोड़ा सा उसके ऊपर भी नज़र डाल लेते हैं. आई थिंक कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग इज़ वन ऑफ द मेजर एलिमेंट्स दैट वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन ओवर हेयर. अच्छा, बिकॉज हम EU ग्रीन डील की बात कर रहे हैं और इफ़ वी टॉक अबाउट द फिट फॉर 55 पैकेज जिसके अंदर हम जस्ट ट्रांजिशन और एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन मैकेनिज्म की बात करते हैं, सो वी आर ऑफरिंग ट्रेनिंग्स इन CBAM and CCF, my organization, and I would like to invite SDPI to work with me on this initiative, and I would like all of you to collaborate with us on this initiative, as I think that before the 2026 डेडलाइन हम उस चीज़ को अडेप्ट करने के लिए हम अपने इंजीनियर्स को, अपनी टेक्निकल वर्कफोर्स को इनेबल कर दें, एंड दिस इज़ व्हाट वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Before coming to the final vote of thanks, Jabbar Sahab, sir, thank you so much once again, and the floor is over to you if you want to add any points before we go to the final vote of thanks. Yeah. You can say from here, and then I'll request Shakib Saab to give the final vote of thanks.
Okay, right. I think so. I'll be a bit disappointing you all of people. Instead of making any vote of thanks, I have something to react on the things which I have heard. You see, first of all, मेरा ख्याल है कि मैं आपको एक बात बताना चाहता हूँ कि एसडीपीआई ने जो भी एक मेन स्ट्रीम सेट की है आज के लिए, उसके बाद हमारे डिप्टी एग्जीक्यूटिव ने इस्लामाबाद से भी बात की कि ये सब चीज़ें जो हैं दे आर एक्चुअली फ्यूचर, इन द सेंस के ही वेरी पोलाइटली एंड हमसे वेरी राइटली सेड के हमारे सारा जो कंडक्टिंग ऑफ अवर बिजनेस बिहेवियर जो होगा दैट विल बी टाइड अप विद दीज थिंग्स। अब थोड़ी देर के लिए मैं ये कहूँ कि पाकिस्तान में कैपिटल पनिशमेंट नहीं हो रही है, उसकी वजह जीएसपी प्लस भी बताई जाती है। एंड देन देर आर सो मेनी अदर इश्यूज इन पाकिस्तान, आई एम ऑल्सो इन द बिजनेस। तो ये सब चीज़ें जो कंडीशनलिटीज़ हैं, जो कि एक इकोनॉमी जो है वो तकरीबन वन कैन से कि स्टिल एक स्ट्रगलिंग इकोनॉमी है, वन कैन नॉट कॉल इट अ कंफर्टेबल एंड सेटल्ड इकोनॉमी, यू सी। तो उस स्ट्रगल्ड सिचुएशंस में वी रियली, आई वुड नॉट यूज द वर्ड डिपेंडिंग, बट वी नीड देयर हेल्प। अब हैविंग सेड सो, मुझे कल परसों में देख रहा था कि वन क्वालिफाइड कतरी who became the finance minister and energy section, all they are making some reforms. तो उसने एक बड़ी अच्छी बात कही कि भाई मुझे कहा गया है $100 बिलियन की आप जो है यहाँ पे एफडीआई लाएं। तो आई टोल्ड देम कि इसमें 40 डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं जिन सब में रिफॉर्म्स की उनकी एक एडजस्टेबिलिटी की ज़रूरत है, जिसका आउटलुक क्या होगा, एक स्पिल ओवर इफेक्ट पैदा करेगा फॉर एफडीआई। अब इसको क्लोज करके कुछ चीज़ें जो मैंने अभी सुनी आपके यहाँ, तो मेरे अपने ख्याल में कि उन्होंने जो एक बात कही कि मौलाना को देखा तकदीर नहीं बदली, तो मैं भी एक शायर कह देता हूँ, मगर उसको विड्रॉ भी कर रहा हूँ फौरी तौर पे, क्योंकि हबीब जालिब ने ये भी कहा था कि चांद यहाँ ना निकला कर, यहाँ सब अंधे रहते हैं। बट आई एम इमीडिएटली विड्रॉइंग दैट। हैविंग सेड सो, अब कुछ मैं जहाँ जहाँ पे कुछ चीज़ें देख रहा हूँ उसको रिस्पॉन्ड करता हूँ। किसी ने, आपने कराची की बात की, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की बात की। In my personal view, not today, since 15 years back, we have been talking even from the platform SDPI के इलेक्ट्रिक जो है उसके पास जो दो सोर्सेस हैं, दे आर हाईली इनएफिशिएंट सोर्सेस। 28 रुपए से लेकर 30 रुपए उसकी कॉस्ट है। बिन कासिम उनका जो प्लांट है, दैट वुड फर्स्ट टू बी स्क्रैप्ड, आई टेल यू। फिर इनकी इंटीग्रेशन जो है आपको से नहीं थी, जहाँ हम कैपेसिटी पेमेंटें दे रहे हैं, इस न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट में नहीं है, जिस ओनली नीड्स अ स्मॉल ट्रांसमिशन सिस्टम, यू सी। These are the main issues which I personally believe are causing the problem in Karachi. Now, having said so, अभी आपने बात की सोलर पैनल की, इन्होंने बात की, I was in PCCIR for many years. तो हम कहते थे कि भाई ये मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ जो सोलर सेल्स हैं ये करें। इस वक्त दुनिया में चाइना के पास जो डम्प्ड मटेरियल है ना, सिर्फ इस सिलसिले में, वो आपके जो डिमांड ग्रोथ ऑफ 6 to 8% के ऊपर भी वो ख़त्म नहीं हो रहा है। दे हैव गॉन सो, दे आर डंपिंग दिस होल सोलर थिंग्स। मैं आपको एक और इंटरेस्टिंग बात बताऊं कि आज से 3 साल पहले मैं चाइना गया था, तो वहाँ पे पाक चाइना इकोनॉमिकल इंटीग्रेशन को पॉलिटिकल इंटीग्रेशन के साथ मिलाने की कोशिश की जा रही थी। तो एक फैक्ट्री में मैं गया जो ग्रिड्स बनाती थी, तो वहाँ हमने देखा कि यार फैक्ट्री बंद है, वर्किंग डे। Said, why? They said there's a surplus production already dumped. So we have stopped this factory for 15 days. यानी 15 दिन के लिए स्टॉप थी। अच्छा, अब बाकी चीज़ें जो मैंने सुनी, मेरे अपने ख्याल में कि हमें थोड़ा सा फ्यूचर आउटलुक के तरफ भी देखना चाहिए कि आखिर फ्यूचर जो है वो किस तरीके से हमारा होगा, एंड वेदर वी विल रिमेन इंटीग्रेटेड इकोनॉमी, और हमारी जो अर्ज है वो एक इंटीग्रेशन के हवाले से होगी। जैसा अभी खालिद ने आपको एक बताया, आई वाज रियली सो हैप्पी कि प्रोबेबली दीज थिंग्स शुड बी टॉक्ड। यहाँ है तो रिकमेंडेशन बने कि भाई अगर 90 बिलियन पर मंथ के हिसाब से आप प्रोटेक्टिव ग्रुप में जा रहे हैं, दे दें इनको सोलर पैनल। भाई पंजाब वाले तो दे ही रहे हैं ना, सिंध वाले भी कहते हैं हम भी दे रहे हैं, ये भी बैठे हुए हमारे दोस्त छोटे भाई। मेरे अपने ख्याल में कि 45 बिलियन अगर आप बचा लेते हैं, दिस इज ए एमिनेंट एंड इमीडिएट सोल्यूशन। अब इन मोहतरमा ने जो बात की ये बैंकों के हवाले से, तो आई वुड फेयरली एग्री विथ यू। मैंने, अगर आपने मेरे कमेंट शुरू में भी सुने होंगे, मैं कहता हूँ करंट अकाउंट्स, SLR, आप बैंकों को यहाँ पे जो है वो रिलैक्सेशन दें। सारे पैसे तो ये लोग कमा रहे हैं। इस वक्त पाकिस्तान में सबसे ज्यादा मुनाफे बख्श डूइंग नथिंग, सिर्फ हैविंग गुड ऑफिसेस एंड बी कंफर्टेबल, यू आर मेकिंग मनी। आप इनके प्रॉफिट्स तो देखें कि कहाँ पे पहुंच गए, यू सी। और सरकार तो मतलब ये है कि सरकार के पैसे उठाने में दे फील सो मच कंफर्ट। मगर मैं थोड़ा सा इन अल्फाजात का चुनाव करना अच्छे तरीके से चाहूँगा, बिकॉज आई ऑल्सो बिलोंग टू SDPI। हमने मेन स्ट्रीम जो खुली हुई है, मैं भी उसका प्रोपोनेंट हूँ, एडवोकेट हूँ। तो आपके बात के साथ बिल्कुल आई एग्री। अब उसके बाद जो है वो मेरे जो दोस्त मेरे बराबर में बैठे हुए थे, इनकी बातें मैंने बहुत ही गौर से सुनी। मुझे थोड़ी देर के लिए ऐसा लगा कि मैं घर वापस जाकर इसको स्ट्रक्चर करूंगा एक कॉम्प्लेक्स मॉडल में। You know, he has said something which is right, but then modeling that, because I'm also freelance, you see, researcher, उसको मैं किस मॉडल में ले जाऊं, क्योंकि मैं कराची यूनिवर्सिटी में ARC का गवर्नर भी हूं। तो मैं ये मॉडलिंग स्टैटिस्टिक्स ये वो काफ़ी मेरे लिए एक सच है, इट्स माय ऑब्सेशन। तो मैं देखूंगा कि इस इनके कॉम्प्लेक्स मॉडल को कहीं कैसे खड़ा किया जाए, फिर उसमें से जो है कैसे बाहर निकला जाए। बट वॉट एवर ही सेड इज राइट। प्रॉबली इन SDPI हम लोग, डॉक्टर खालिद भी बैठा हुआ है, हमारे पास बहुत अच्छे रिसोर्स पर्सन हैं, बहुत अच्छे। पाकिस्तान में किसी के पास इतने अच्छे नहीं है। प्रॉबली हम इस कॉम्प्लेक्स मॉडलिंग को भी देखें, क्योंकि बातें तो इन्होंने दुरुस्त की है। अभी ऊंची वो उड़ान और ऊंची प्रवास, मुझे याद है कि प्रोफेसर साहब जब भी कोई आते हैं तो एक किताब जरूर लिख डालते हैं। 2025 2010 शुरू में जब आए थे तो मैं FTC में, मुझे याद है उन्होंने कहा था कि आज के बाद पेपर एक दिन में ऊपर से नीचे जाएगा और नीचे से ऊपर आएगा। तो उन्होंने वो फैक्स वाला फार्मूला इस्तेमाल किया। मगर जो इन्होंने बात कही कि भाई 2006 से लेकर 2025, तो मुझे भी 2025 अभी हो चुके हैं। मगर लेट अस बी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक। हम थोड़ा सा अगर एक पेसिमिज्म को अपने लिए एक फॉर एग्जांपल फ्रंट कॉस्ट बनाएंगे, तो ये है हमारी फ्रंट कॉस्ट, तो हम बाहर नहीं निकल सकेंगे। देखिए, हमें तो एक काविशें करनी चाहिए, एडवोकेसी करनी चाहिए। अभी एक मेरा ख्याल है कि मोहतरमा ने एक बात की बैंक से, एडॉप्टिव स्ट्रेटेजी एंड मिटिगेटिंग स्ट्रेटेजी, वेरी बिग पॉइंट। देखिए, ये चीज़ें स्टेक होल्डर के साथ जब कंसल्टेशन होती है, हम तो मेरा ख्याल है कि आप हमारे जो यहाँ पे दोस्त हैं सामने खड़े हुए हैं, हमें से एवरीथिंग मस्ट बी ऑन द रिकॉर्ड। वी विल डेफिनेटली ट्राई टू सी कि वेयर वी कैन रियली अकोमोडेट। फिर बाकी चीज़ें जो दूसरी मेरा ख्याल है कि ग्रेड मिनी ये वो ये सब मैंने सुनी। अब पाकिस्तान की वल्नरेबिलिटी की भी हमने बातें सुनी। मेरा ख्याल है कि गुड, सम ऑफ द डेटाज वर वेरी गुड। और मतलब ड्रिल 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 की इन्होंने फिलॉसफी बताई। प्रॉबली इस फिलॉसफी को हम भी समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि अमेरिका में एक्चुअली जो शेल गैस की टेक्नोलॉजी है, दैट वाज सो सुपीरियर। मैं मेंबर ऑफ द शेल गैस ग्रुप था प्लानिंग कमीशन में। हमने बहुत कोशिश की कि कोई वहाँ पे, SDPI की तरफ से ही मैं गया था, SDPI हैड नॉमिनेटेड, वहाँ हमारा एक सब ग्रुप था, आई वाज ओवर देयर। तो हमने उस ज़माने में भी कहा कि भाई इंडस बेसन में ये शेल है। उस ज़माने में कीमतें ऊपर बढ़ रही थी। ये हाइड्रो क्रैकिंग किस तरीके से हम अक्वायर करें, हमने अक्वायर नहीं की। तो वेरिएबल्स जो है ना इकोनॉमिक्स के, उसमें आप देखें वॉलेटिलिटी भी बहुत ज़्यादा होती है। व्हेन इन अ सर्टेन गिवन टाइम फ्रेमवर्क कोई क्या करना चाह रहा है, जिसके पास ग्लोब में पावर है, रेन है, हमें उसको किस तरीके से फिर पेसिंग करनी चाहिए, हम वो कर नहीं पाते हैं। आज ट्रम्प अगर ये बातें कर रहा है, सबको कह रहा है भाई ऑयल, तो व्हाट डज दैट मीन? क्या फॉसिल थोड़ी देर के लिए कैपेसिटी पेमेंट पाकिस्तान में अगर हमने अगर अच्छे एग्रीमेंट नहीं बनाए थे, और अगर इस चीज़ को एड्रेस किया जाए जिसको इस वक्त अपना मेरा ख्याल है कि विद द हेल्प ऑफ लेट्स से कि आर्मी इस्टेब्लिशमेंट, सिविल गवर्नमेंट थोड़ा बहुत जो है वो IPPs के ऊपर काम तो कर रही है, तो फिर क्या कीमतें होंगी? तो ये सब चीज़ें एक एम्पेरिकल एविडेंस बेस्ड रिसर्च का हिस्सा है। और हमारे जो लोग हैं वो मेरे अपने ख्याल में दे आर अलाइव टू दैट, दे अंडरस्टैंड। खालिद इज़ वेरी गुड। अभी जिससे आपने बात की, उसने स्टेट बैंक की ऑटोनॉमी और नॉन ऑटोनॉमी के ऊपर एक किताब लिखी हुई थी, कुछ अगर आप लोग पढ़ें SDPI के, अगर आप वेबसाइट पे चले जाएं, और मेरे अपने ख्याल में कि रोज़ाना अगर 100 पेजेस भी पढ़ लें, विच इज़ नॉट पॉसिबल, 20 भी पढ़ लें, तो यू विल सी कि हाउ मच वर्क वी हैव डन। तो मेरे अपने ख्याल में कि आई वुड लाइक टू स्टॉप हेयर, क्योंकि मुझे बोलने का तो बहुत शौक है, मगर मैं सिर्फ आखिरी चीज़ जो है ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि आप सब लोगों की बातें जो हैं उसमें एक इमोशंस थे, उसमें जो है वो आपने मायूसी का इज़हार करने के बजाय आपने सोचा कि नहीं इसको हम कहें। वेरी गुड पॉइंट्स, सबके पॉइंट्स वैलिड थे, अच्छे थे, वो सब नोट हो चुके हैं। मगर मेरी सदा यही होगी कि फ्यूचर कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन बनाने के लिए एसडीपीआई इज स्ट्राइविंग। हमारा ज़्यादातर फोकस यही होता है कि इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स में हम परमिएट करें, तो जो कंडीशंस हमारे ऊपर लागू हो रही हैं और होंगी, दे आर नॉट आवर चॉइसेस, दे आर देयर चॉइसेस। आज ट्रम्प साहब कहते हैं कि हाँ जी ऑल रिलेटेड एड्स को बंद कर दें। उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि भाई पाकिस्तान ने मेरे लिए किया क्या है, मैंने $33 बिलियन इनको 15 सालों में दे दिए हैं मुफ्त में। नॉट, लेट मी टेल यू, नॉन रिफंडेबल, नॉट रिटर्नेबल। वो कह रहा है दिया क्या है इस मुल्क ने। तो ये सब चीजें जो है ना, वो इस चीजों में थोड़ा सा हमें अपना एक लेआउट बनाना चाहिए। तो लेट मी अप्रिशिएट माय पीपल, यू सी, रादर मुझे अपने आप को भी अप्रिशिएट करने का दिल करता है कि वी आर ऑल टुगेदर, कि एसडीपीआई इज डूइंग इट्स बेस्ट टू प्रोजेक्ट एंड टू ब्रिंग फोर्थ एडवोकेसी फॉर द रीजंस व्हिच हैव टू बी अडॉप्टेड। अभी आपने को मिटिगेशन की भी एक स्ट्रेटेजी की आपने बात की, तो चीज़ें बहुत अच्छी थी। और दिस लेडी जो चली गई, वो उन्होंने जो $120 बिलियन का फार्मूला आपको दिया है, उसको भी थोड़ा देखेंगे नेक्स्ट उसमें सेशंस में। ये जो फाइनेंसेस हैं, प्रॉब्लम ये है कि इसको रिस्क कवरेज क्या मिले, उस रिस्क कवरेज के लिए क्या सरकार या स्टेट बैंक कोई एसएलआर, इनके जो करंट अकाउंट्स हैं। आपको पता है, मैं आखिरी एक बात कहना चाहता हूँ, माय वाइफ इज डर्मेटोलॉजिस्ट। जब भी मैं उसको कहता हूँ कि तुमने करंट अकाउंट में पैसे रखे हैं तो मेरे को तो कुछ नहीं मिलता, कहती ये प्रो इस्लामिक है। मतलब इन दिस कंट्री ट्रिलियंस ऑफ रुपीस आर ओवर देयर। तो मेरा ख्याल है वहां से ही अगर बैंक्स जो है अपने प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी को एक हाइपोथेकेटेड मॉडल पे कहीं पे हाफ वे भी ले आए, 1/4 भी लाएं, ये है। और आखिरी बात मैं आपको बताऊं, ये जो इस्लामिक बैंकिंग वगैरह में, इसमें भी मेरी बड़ी दिलचस्पी है। इस वक्त सबसे बड़ा इस्तेहसाल अगर हो रहा है तो इस्लामिक बैंकिंग की तरफ से हो रहा है लोगों के साथ। अब ये एक अलग टॉपिक है, मेरा ख्याल है कि इसको मैं नहीं बात
So
करूंगा।
yeah, thank
So
you.
thank you for
Thank
giving me
you.
time.
Thank you so much. So once again for concluding the whole session, and I'll just from my end it's all good, but I'll just request just 1 minute for all of you to sort of stay to Shakib Saab to say the final thank you on behalf of all of us and especially STPI. So once again, thank you so much from my end, and we fully understand that you're all very impatient, but yeah, just 1 more minute perhaps. Thank you.
थैंक यू जब्बार साहब, मैं आपकी बेगम साहबा से एग्री करता हूँ।
Thank you.
आई एम ऑल्सो, आई कीप माई मनी इन करंट अकाउंट्स बिकॉज ऑफ इस्लामिक प्रिंसिपल्स। Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for attending. Very candid discussion, very open, a lot of ideas, a lot of solutions. जो सबसे अच्छी बात हुई before, I mean, जब्बार साहब ने बहुत कुछ कह दिया। We were able to identify with a note of positiveness, as you said, Jabbar Sahab, with a note of positiveness, that we were able to identify key areas where we can progress. The most important topic that I'm taking home today is self-reliance, because I think nobody is going to be bothered about us unless we are bothered about ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. And I think what Irfan Saab pointed out are small-scale solutions. A small-scale solution which could be easily financed, which would show Pakistani rupee productivity, which would show Pakistani rupee dependency, and of course, money for the banks and money for the investor. I think that was very critical. What this lady pointed out from the United Nations was a capacity building. It is very important for our for the individuals that are actually undertaking the projects, that are actually involved, to be knowledgeable about it. I mean, people like Dr. Khalid, people like Ubaid, people that are from STPI, the team here, they should be, everybody should be in all institutions. There should be individuals who should have the capacity and the capability, especially the youngsters. I saw a lot of interactivity in the last 2 days when I was at the Overseas Investors Chamber of Commerce. A lot of youngsters that were there. So I think that is the key area. Finance is available as it was pointed out, but it's just taking it home. So with that note, I would like to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for a very candid discussion. I'm sure the report is going to be put out. I hope they don't erase a lot of stuff, but especially there was immense contribution by all of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, the SDPI team, and
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. And just to mention, lunch is served in the Nadia restaurant. So please do join us. Everyone, please do join us. Yeah. Thank you so much for